People who get locked into a vision. All right, that's it, man. That's their drive. That's their passion. Critics don't matter. This don't matter. They're going to do whatever it fucking takes to be the best at what they do.
This is Dave Tate with another edition of Table Talk. Today my guest is Clint Darden. Clint has been a part of Team Elite FTS for, I want to say, over a decade or close to over a decade. As I'm going through your guys' questions here, I'm going to have Clint kind of introduce or give your background real quick, just from a competitive standpoint with strength sports. You don't have to go all the way back to, the martial arts and so forth.
Oh, gosh. Looking back, I think I did my first strongman contest in 2001. Took dead last in every single event, dead last overall, and just was hooked immediately. Qualified for nationals. Went to nationals that year, took second, and I think I earned my pro card in less than 2 years. First American to earn his pro card by winning a Platinum Plus show. And long story short, met a hot chick after that, moved overseas, followed her, began competing all over Europe. Took a few years away, and then I'm back again competing on the Masters circuit.
That was a quick summary.
Yeah, summary.
Yeah, so how many years? So
18 years.
So 18
I think I'm
years.
the oldest active strongman in America.
Okay. Training, so are you saying the 18 years from when you competed?
Yeah,
or the
first
18
contest to current.
So it's really 19 years because you had to get ready for that first one.
Getting ready, yeah.
Yeah.
I look back at it and think, man, I wasn't ready, or I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, you had to have you didn't just jump into it, right?
Actually, I wanted to weigh 300 pounds. That was the goal. So I did whatever it took to weigh 300 pounds. And I remember December 26th getting on the scale weighing 306. And I was so fat and out of shape. I was just out of breath just walking to the bathroom. And I remember my mom sitting me down and having a talk with me. Look, son, this is really bad. You look bad. Mm-hmm. You're out of shape. I said, don't worry. I'm going to break 300, and then I'm going to cut down, get in shape. And a buddy of mine had got me hooked on this sounded like manual labor kind of training, picking up sandbags and carrying farmer's walk implements, and thinking, why would I want to do that? I want to be big. And, I weighed 306. The next day I went out with a pair of easy curl bars, made me a pair of farmer's walk handles, and began carrying those up and down the driveway. Within a week I had a tire, began flipping it till I puked. And I think I dropped from 306 to about 265 in 2 or 3 months. Just getting in shape, watching what I was eating. And from there, I think I found myself, hey, some of this stuff is actually fun. It's not just moving stuff for no reason whatsoever. Going through an old Milo magazine, I saw that there was a strongman contest about 30, 40 minutes away. And they had a website back when people actually got on message boards, on the Anvil message board. So I could get on there and check out, and there were some other people going to the same contest. Signed up, went, competed, gave me something to train for, kind of a purpose. I think it's when I look back at that point in my training, I was going to school full time, I was working full time, had no money, didn't have time to go to the local gym, and so I got a squat rack and a bench off of UBID. It goes back that far. And I paid $99, shipping included, for the rack and the bench. And just began working out in my parents' garage. That's just where it kind of all began.
So with that, we're looking like late 90s?
98, 99.
98, 99.
Right.
And throughout the 20 years, because as well as a competitor, you're also a fan because you're watching
Absolutely.
The top guys. You've seen, or we've seen, strongman go from longer anaerobic or events.
Right.
I remember, was it Marcus Henry having to walk around the track 440
Right.
yards or 400 meters or whatever it was, and just fucking dying.
Yeah.
To shorter, more heavy type.
Well, honestly, I think
events.
what the sport has began was it kind of began as a group of power lifters and other athletes that went and did strongman on the weekends or just signed up for a show. And when I began strongman, that's what it was. It was people who used to do powerlifting that were bored with powerlifting, didn't want to wear gear anymore, really weren't good powerlifters. I hope that doesn't offend somebody, but I think a lot of people fell into that group.
Well, if you look at the height, the leverages are not suited,
right?
For powerlifting.
And then there's something else to do, or for the older powerlifters, some guy who's been powerlifting since high school, and then by the time he's 30, and he's like, what else am I going to do? Well, there's this strongman thing. Well, I can do that on the weekend with the guys, and it's something new and different. So that's kind of what the sport was then. People who did strongman part-time. And then now what you see is people who do strongman full-time. They came into the sport of strongman as their first sport, and they're learning about powerlifting to help them build up, their lifts and strongman.
Yeah. But we've seen a couple waves to where
absolutely.
There were where you needed a very, very high anaerobic threshold, compare where some of the guys today that are 400 pounds may not have even been able to do. They would have been able to do, but not in the times that the people who were winning back then were, because they were.
That's gone in waves. You have to remember that. Like when you're looking at World's Strongest Man, it's not really a contest. It's a TV show.
Yes.
So and the people that run it want to make money. So they have to make the best TV show possible. So if you look at your athletes, also known as your players or actors, you end up designing a contest that's mounted around what kind of athletes do I have? Do I have mostly static strength athletes? Because if we do, we want to have a max deadlift, we want to have a max log, not a lot of moving events. If you go back like several years ago when Pujanowski was kind of dominating, and all of those guys that were competing at the time, most of the events were moving events, because those are your athletes, and as if you run strongman, those are your, that's your team. So you design the best plays so your team looks the best on camera. And I think, when you look out there now and you've got Brian Shaw, it's like almost all the athletes are 6'6" or taller, and 400 pounds is a standard. So these guys can do whatever Brian Shaw will drop 30, 40 pounds, getting ready for World's Strongest Man after winning the Arnold. And who looks the Arnold?
It's different.
It's totally different, whether it's going to be static strength and super heavy or whether it's going to be moving. So I think we're going to always continue to see, that wave is going to continue to happen depending on, who's in the show, who's running the show, who your best athletes are.
So I think, my theory on some of it is it's where they're competing. Like the Arnold forces them
absolutely
to be able to do everything on a stage, which means it can't be longer duration events. And any expo forces them to be able to do that. Now, the World's Strongest Man, obviously, it's a longer, that's why Brian drops the weight. And they probably all drop a little bit of the weight.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the reasons out of many that we saw the winner that we did this year was because of that.
Yep.
You got longer duration events, which is kind of fucked up for the guys that are in the sport, because it's like, okay, on this one I have to be, strong as fuck. Then on this one I need to, cut weight and be able to move, and the events are so vastly different that it's a hell of an accomplishment to be able to take the Arnold and the World's Strongest Man in the same year.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Because the events are so vast that
it's wild. Yeah, to be able to do that. And getting ready for the World's Strongest Man, you didn't know what the events were until a few weeks out. They didn't know the country that the contest was in until I think 5-6 weeks out. So we had athletes. There was an athlete from South Africa was sending me messages. He asked me if I had any tricks or tips on how to get a quicker visa, because there were several athletes that they were invited to come to the States, and they couldn't get a visa in time.
Yeah.
So he got invited to World's Strongest Man,
but he couldn't get here.
Couldn't get here.
Yeah.
And he was tore up. Just absolutely demolished.
Yeah. Going back, because you said it's a TV show, and what I was told going back, I'm just going to say 10 years because it's pretty much, that's when it was Metrics, I believe. That it really wasn't even a TV show. It was a half-hour paid commercial that, Metrics paid for basically that half-hour spot, and then whatever ad revenue came in, which usually not a whole lot of people are buying commercials for that because there's nothing really specific that could be tied to that's why it was there. But I don't know if that was just a bullshit excuse, because you have the one side of the power lifter saying, well, why is this on TV but this isn't? And the answer is, well, here's this supplement company that's buying
Right.
A half hour of TV time to be able to do this, and if it does well,
Right.
then ESPN will.
If you had to make money from running a powerlifting competition on television, didn't have to be live, you could record everything. Would you have the competition just as you see most contests today? You could have it outside. You could have lights. You could have fireworks. You could have music. You could run it any way you want to. They could squat on one day, bench on another day, deadlift on another day, and nobody would know because it would all be compiled into a TV show. Everyone could wear matching outfits. Anything you can imagine. The first year you might say, okay, I want to have something like the WPO. I mean, that's just amazing to watch. And then the next year you're thinking, what if we did some of the squats outside in the shade? We'll put some fans on these guys, but we'll have it with the backdrop as a beach. We'll have some girls behind them, because you want to please not just the powerlifters watching, but you want to please, the moms and pops and everyone else who is just flipping through channels. What would you do then to make it appealing to them? And then how are you going to reach out to the people who know nothing about lifting whatsoever to get them interested in what they're going to see? And I think that's what you have in strongman now, because everyone asks, what sport do you compete in? I'm like, well, strongman. Well, what's that? Well, ever watch TV and it's the sport where the guys pick up the large tires or the large stones, or they pull trucks or things? Yeah, I think I've seen that. That's what I do. But it's, how do you reach everybody? Because 10 years ago, when I said I did strongman, is that where you pull the trucks with your teeth?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you either just joke around with them and say, yeah, that's what I do. I've got a really good dental plan, or you spend a long time trying to. I've got a neighbor in Cyprus still thinks I do some kind of wrestling. She doesn't. I mean, I've trained next door to her outside, for 15 years, and she still thinks I do some type of wrestling. But yeah, I mean, it is purely a show, and it is made for TV. It's made to make money for the owners, not for the athletes. You look at Giants Live, the guy who's running Giants Live, he's running most of his biggest shows out of the UK. And the athletes get a cut of what comes in the door. So they keep talking about, the shows in the UK, they've got 10,000 people watching the shows. In the States, we've only got a couple of hundred. Well, those athletes in the UK, they're getting a cut of what comes in the door. So they promote the heck out of this thing. I mean, they call everybody they know. They're promoting online. Serious promotions. They will trash talk on TV stations in the UK for weeks just to get, it makes the news, and they get 10,000 people there, and the athletes get a cut of what comes in the door. You go to World's Strongest Man, the athletes have terrible, terrible conditions. Terrible food, terrible hotel. They're treated like crap. They will be on, they're up and they're on site at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. They don't get back to their hotel room till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. What do you do for food? Recovery. World's Strongest Man has been like a 10 to 14 day show. So when you see those guys, winning the finals, they've done nothing but strongman for the last 14 days straight. So to be able to do that's an amazing accomplishment, especially under absolute horrible conditions. We had a lot of athletes this last year that got invited, qualified, and just decided, I don't want to go.
Well, there's a financial cost too, because
they are going to help you with that. But like Graham Hicks, a good friend of mine out of the UK, he qualified. He's got the UK log press. He didn't beat Eddie. Sorry, Graham. But phenomenal presser, won either UK or England's Strongest Man. He got second at the other because he was injured. Qualified for World's Strongest Man. He's got a wife. I believe he has 2 children, and his wife was pregnant with a third. works a full-time job, gets invited, doesn't even know the country it's going to be in, and he just says, look, guys, if you can't even tell me when it is or where it is, just mark me, I'm out. I can't go. I mean, I've got to take care of my family and work, and
Yeah.
so it's run different than everything else. It's purely a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, everybody still wants to win it.
Yeah, of course.
Even if it's just a TV show and everyone's like, yeah, but it's, it's not really. So you don't want to win? Oh, yeah, I want to win. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I want, everyone wants to be world's strongest man.
Mm-hmm. And they're all, I mean, even with it being, there's a lot of similar aspects to powerlifting. Even with it being, air quote, a shit show, it's the same shit show for every competitor that's there.
Absolutely.
So they're all competing under the same conditions.
Yep.
So you can say, you can make the argument that, well, this is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Having to stay here for 2 weeks
is
part of it.
It is.
It's part of the mental part of it. Can you keep it together, for 2 weeks? But
there's no way I could, because I'm a total mental chaos. I mean, to have to compete every single day for 2 weeks, there's no way I could do that. I would be fried, just mentally and physically fried. So when you see somebody that gets up on that podium, and you realize they've been lifting every day for 2 weeks on TV, and, they're out there lifting, and, the whistle blows, and they're fired up crazy to do a 900-pound deadlift, and they pull it, and then, the referee blows the whistle, say, wait. The camera guy wasn't ready. We got to go again. They just pulled a max pull, and it didn't count because the camera guy wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine what you would do to the camera guy if he wasn't ready and you just had a PR deadlift.
Yeah.
And you had to go again, make or miss. And that's what the audience sees is the second attempt, because the camera guy wasn't ready or the light wasn't perfect for television. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. There's a whole lot that goes into it. A lot of the athletes really complained a lot this year. A lot of injuries this last year. A lot of guys are making it their last year. They wanted to come back and make this special. They walked away with injuries.
Well, there's competition now.
So absolutely.
You got the Arnold Europe, then you have the Arnold here. You have Giants Live. So, and if all these are paying more,
right?
And if what holds true in powerlifting holds true in strongman, the biggest thing they really all want above and beyond everything else, they can say they want the money. I get that, but they would probably still do it without the money. They just may not be there for 2 weeks,
right.
But they want to compete against the other best guys.
Absolutely.
They want to know who's better, me or you, on this given day, given these conditions. That's what they really care about. Second to that is money. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I tell powerlifters the same thing because there's money meets and there's different meets and nobody knows what meet to compete in. It's just like all you guys need to do is get together, send out a mass email, say, what do you want? What meet do you want to do?
Absolutely.
And then decide which one it's going to be. That's the one you're going to peak for. Everybody's going to agree to go to that one. And then you go there and that's where it happens.
It's, there's at least once a month, somebody will post something on Facebook, and then they'll say, attention all promoters or attention athletes. What kind of contest do you want promoters to run so everybody will show up? And I don't think it's that way at all. I think it's all the athletes just deciding, hey, we're going to go somewhere and compete. Mm-hmm. We are all, call up all the top guys. We're going to go somewhere and compete. I don't think it's so much the show, because you do want to be treated nice. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you're out on a concrete floor, killing yourself for a plastic trophy, and there's no way you break even by going. There's no way you break even. You go to World's Strongest Man, you win $70,000. There's no way you broke even that year. If all you competed was World's Strongest Man, there's no way. With $70,000, you broke even. If you win World's Strongest Man, out of the top 30 athletes that were there, and then the hundreds that didn't make it. So, at the end of the day, I think it's just I think you're right. Call up all of your buddies and say, this is what we're going to do. And I think the Boston contest used to be that for a lot of people. And that's how I met Murph. Was going to Boston every year. It was the hardest contest of the year, the heaviest contest of the year, but everybody was there. Mm-hmm. Some international guys were there. The best athletes in the country were there. And that's where I wanted to be.
And that's the camaraderie, and that's
Absolutely. The events were scary, where every other contest were using like 275, maybe 300-pound farmers walk implements. They used 375s with slick handles. I mean, everything was whatever was normal plus like 25%. Every single event scared you when you went out there. The newest equipment, scary weights, and the best athletes.
So if somebody wanted to get into strongman who's listening to this now, what would you advise them to do?
Pick a contest and just go. Just jump in. You're never ready.
Where are they going to find the contest at? Like where you know what I'm saying? It's easy because you're involved with it. Where I can say, go pick a powerlifting show, but where's the list?
Best thing to do is go to startingstrongman.com.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's jumping out of his chair right now, the guy who runs that. Kale, and or go to Starting Strongman on Facebook, and he runs the best place as far as I'm concerned on where, if you want to learn the basics about strongman, if you want to get into the sport, he offers a ton of free programs for beginners, for anybody. He has really sat down and developed a way to, how can I really help the athletes, and he's developed his website, Facebook page. If you want to learn what to do first, it's the first place I would go, startingstrongman.com or his Facebook page. And there's all, but you can ask questions. People are nice there. And I say that probably be a bunch of trolls hitting it this afternoon.
Yeah, it's the internet.
It's the way it goes. But all you have to do is say, is there a contest in my area? I know they've got a listing on there of upcoming shows. Pick one that looks halfway exciting and just go and do it. Just sign up, put your name down, go and do it. Walk away. You're going to learn. You're going to learn a ton of things just by going and competing. And you're never going to learn in training.
Are there weight classes or weight divisions? How's it broken up?
Man, I get confused because there's a couple of different federations in the state now. Everybody's kind of breaking off a little bit and creating their own thing. But in general, you're going to have like a 175s, a 200. After that, different federations go 231 and under. Some of them go 220 and under. But you're almost guaranteed that you can compete against someone of your own body weight-ish. And they offer some contests that are for beginners, novices, that sort of thing. Guys that have only competed one or two shows. So you have a pretty good idea that you're not going to be competing against a 400-pound giant that's been doing this for 10 years. You can sign up, compete against another 175-pound guy who's also a beginner. And the events aren't something that's going to be dangerous, so you're not going to get hurt. I say you shouldn't get hurt. And it's a great place to start.
So anybody that's interested, there's 100% ability to
there's
be
a
able
spot
to.
For you.
There's
somewhere
a spot
for you, yeah.
The same as there would be in powerlifting and so forth. They just need to know where to go.
Right.
And so that website, again, just to repeat it so people know.
startingstrongman.com.
startingstrongman.com.
And if you want to read the trolls, go to their Facebook page.
Now, what I get asked, and I send a lot of them on to you, the question I get asked is, how do you use conjugate for strongman? And basically, what would be a general template for them? Well, you said the site has a lot of general stuff, but from your opinion, if you get somebody that you're working with and they want to do strongman, how do you train them for their first competition, being that they're an intermediate gym rat? Because I think that's typically what you're going to see entering. You're not going to see.
Well, looking at my clients, and I've got a client in the room here now. I ask every incoming client the same thing. What works for you and what doesn't work for you. And most of them have no idea what works for them and what doesn't work, which drives me absolutely insane. I could take this off on a total tangent. I got into a conversation last week with a guy at a local gym in Kentucky where I'm at for the summer, and he's trying to build his squat. And he went into this big, long spiel. I know I'm going off topic, but everybody goes off topic on these things. He goes into this big, long spiel about his squats not going up. He didn't hit his PR that day, and in 2 weeks' time, he's got to come back and break his PR. I'm like, well, if you didn't hit your PR today, what makes you think you're going to PR in 2 weeks? I mean, if you didn't do it today, you've got one more training session before you've got to come back and do it in 2 weeks. So what did you do? What did you do today that's going to make sure that you're going to hit a PR in 2 weeks? He didn't know. I said, well, what builds your squat? He didn't know. Well, what works for you? He didn't know. And after lots of pushing and pulling, he said, well, I think glute ham raises help build my squat. Doing abs builds my squat. And he hated to admit it, but he thought leg presses built his squat. He needed a lot more leg size as well. And I said, well, how many sets of glute ham raises did you do today? None. What about the leg press? None. So why do you think, what makes you believe, and I love this guy, what makes you believe that you're going to hit a PR in 2 weeks? What are you going to do? Because he's natural, so he's not just like, I'm going to swallow a bottle of D-ball a day. You know, I mean, that wasn't going to be the answer. So, and he's just totally, his mind is blown. So when I get any new client that comes in, you know, and if their goal is to compete in strongman, if I get someone who says, I know that high volume squats work for me, then I say, why should I change that? Why should I make someone who's used to doing something that's almost Chico-ish and make them do a conjugate system with box squats and bands and chains if they know that a high volume routine works for them? So it doesn't matter really what their goal is. If they know that something works for them, then I've got to keep that in the program no matter what it is. And everyone should know what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And if it doesn't work for you, you should know why it doesn't work for you. Do you just suck at it? Are you doing it wrong? And then every time someone says, you know, well, box squats with bands and chains don't work for me, then I'm like, well, you're probably doing them wrong, and that's exactly what I'm going to ask you to do. You know, because I get really picky about that. But you know, you have to look at what you know works and what doesn't work for you in your general training. And for the most part, for any new athlete that's new to the sport, I want them to find a training crew, because that's their best source for information. People who can look at them right now, and that's where they're going to learn all the crap talk that happens in the weight room. You know, with the strongman crew. Every training session, you're going to learn 10 different things. You know, John does it this way. You know, Lou does it this way. Chris does it this way. And you're going to get, and you're going to learn so much, and you're going to have a bunch of guys. You're going to see somebody else that's going to kill themselves, and you're going to say, well, I can do that too. You know, rather than training on your own, it's just you training on your own. But I usually have one event day, and I try to limit what they do so they don't totally kill themselves and screw themselves up for the rest of the week. And if they do screw themselves up, then it's my job to deal with that and to fix them the next week. And really the only alteration I will make with that is if they have a contest coming up with a log press or an axle press or a circus dumbbell press, something like that. Quite often we'll take a second day and work on technique with that event. And if they really suck on an event, if they got one event that's just a really big nemesis that they really suck on, we'll come back and we'll play with that event again on another day during the week. And we have to shift and pull out some of the accessories. Like a strongman athlete who's loading 10 max effort stones once or twice a week, picking up an 800-pound super yoke, flipping tires. How much bicep work do they need after flipping a tire and picking up a 400-pound Atlas stone? Your lats are destroyed. So I'm going to put them on a seated pulley row machine and have them knock out 8 sets of 10 reps. No, their back is destroyed for the week anyway. So we can pull out some of those accessories that they would normally do if they weren't doing the strongman events. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm going to throw some ideas out to kind of help, because a lot of times the reason people don't know what works for them is because they're not looking for the correlations, to be able to see what works for them.
And I know that because you've asked me before what works for me.
Yeah.
And I had no clue.
Yeah. And
after spending all week telling people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just a matter of looking back through your training, or just thinking back through your training. Every time X went up, Y went up, and say Y is your bench, squat, right, deadlift. So if X determines, Y, then you need to focus more on the exercises that are going to build X to be able to do that. And I think everybody can do that as long as there is enough exercise rotation, to be able to have enough exercises to know. Because sometimes lifters may only do 5 total exercises over a 12-week period of time.
Right.
And then you can still look and say, what makes your lift go up? Like, right, what tempo were you using? Did you try to change the tempos? Did you do pause squats? Did you do, what rep range? That type of stuff. they all know at what point things started to feel better. And it's a feel, it's not really the weight. It's like, man, I
feel good today.
And what the dumbasses usually do is just throw more weight on, where you just let that day go, and then you realize, okay, what did I do before this? But what did I also do last week?
Right.
Because that has an impact or an impact
but that
there.
information is out there, because I remember having a conversation with you probably 10 years ago or more, and I was trying to bring up my bench, and you were telling me that incline close grips always brought up your bench, and then you follow that up with saying, but I can't do them anymore. And that seems to be like I think that's a trend. A lot of the older lifters, they say, we did incline bench back in the day, incline close grip bench, and it made our bench go up, but we can't do them anymore. And in strongman, I had a buddy of mine that was totally against doing board presses. Totally against, and I was like, his log press went down. So go do some board presses. And then he came back like 6 months later, and he said, you know what? I figured out that when my 3 board goes up, my log press goes up. So that was like why would he do anything else other than 3 board? If he knew that his 3 board built his log press, then he had his log press day, and then his accessory day was just killing himself on 3 board press. And then he sat down and said, okay, what makes my 3 board go up? Because I've got to make my 3 board go up. Because if my 3 board goes up, then my log press goes up. So then he was doing a bunch of crazy, that was his key then, was trying to figure out what made his 3 board go up. Because if that went up, his log press went up. But that information's out there. You ask people, how do I make my atlas stones go up? And 10 years ago, everybody was saying do front squats. I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It doesn't work at all. And then I was in my 30s then, and now that I'm in my 40s, I'm sitting there saying, man, how come my atlas stones are sucking right now? And I went and did a big, I did like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months of front squats. You know what? My atlas stones went up. So if it didn't work for me at the time, but it's working for me now.
Yeah, I agree. The information's there. It's elitefts.com, to pimp out our own site. I mean, we got 21 years of archives, and there's over 1 million pages of content. But you got to be able to know how to search Google, to be able to do this, because even site searches anymore are not going to work as well as Google.
Right.
So, if you search elitefts.com, and then I always forget the difference between a semicolon and, the 2 dots, and then type in, strongman.
Right.
And then hit that, you're going to see every page that's ever been archived through elitefts.com, or the site that you were talking about. Type that in there, hit the 2 dots, and then type what you want. That search is going to trump any search that's on any site anywhere, especially if the site's an older site that's been migrated several times and has lost, tags and meta tags get, kind of screwed up, algorithms get all fucked up. That kind of brings everything all right back into that. Going back to, the older you get, the more exercises get taken away. I can totally relate to that. But what those people in that position need to think, so the close grip incline press, you got to think, what exactly is a close grip incline? See, people, this is the one thing that I've noticed is a little different with the generation who's training hard today as opposed to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, is they want spoon-fed the answers, which is okay. Like, if all they want to do is compete and, they're working other jobs and, it's just, that I get that.
It is okay that. Because I play guitar, and then I want to pay someone just to tell me.
Yes.
Tell me what to do right now, so I can, I can play like Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, and you don't want to know all the.
I don't want to do that at all. And I hired a guy who used to be one of my clients as a power lifter, and he played in Nashville as a studio artist for years. And his answer was just play every day for as long as you can. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, because here's exactly what he's telling you, is he's telling you to think.
Right.
That people aren't thinking through things because they're just being told do this, so they do it, and they're not thinking like, what is that? What am I actually doing here? Where I like to always speak about the incline press in relationship to the bench press in relationship to the floor press. A bench press is basically a full body exercise. Leg drive, shoulders pushed into the bench, push yourself away. I'm not going to go into great detail on that. It's all over all over the website, all over the internet. All right. So then you go to the floor, you put your legs out in front of you. Now you're basically doing the same thing that you did on the bench, but you've just removed all leg drive. So now what does that do? That's where people will just do the floor press and say, okay, I'm doing floor presses.
Right.
But they don't think, what is going on now? Well, I removed my legs. Well, what does that do? Well, it takes all leg drive out. What does that do? Well, that means now it's going to put more stress, on my pressing muscles, the shoulders and the triceps and the delts, because you really can't. You can get your back tight,
right,
but you can't get it as tight as you can on the bench. So it's really more of an anterior building press type of movement, which is what it's there for. Now, when you go to the incline, what does the incline do? Well, it puts the legs back into the movement, right? But it removes the lats because you're at an angle. So now you can't really, you'll see people try to, brace and tuck and get their upper back set on the incline. But by the time they do that, they're in such an arch, they're right back to a flat bench.
Right.
So it's like, get your fucking back flat. So now it takes the lats out. So what you have with the incline is you're doing a pressing movement by removing the lats. So if you can't do the incline anymore, then what do you need to find?
Right.
You need to find some type of pressing movement that's not going to allow a whole lot of lat work.
Well, now, how has that changed for you? Because 10 years ago when I met you, I was getting advice from you thinking, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And then now that I am the age that you were when you were giving me advice 10 years ago, I'm thinking I should have recorded that conversation, because there are a lot of exercises like incline close grips that I can't do anymore without serious pain. There are a lot of exercises that I can't do today that I could have done 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here now looking at, all these machines that I would have said were totally stupid 10 years ago. And now I'm thinking I need a gym with a lot more machines in it because it's at least joint friendly.
Yes.
The exercises that I need to do now to make progress are totally different than what I needed to do 10 years ago, or what I could do 10 years ago.
Yeah. For me, I can't squat, so I can't hold a squat bar. So I can't compete, which is a blessing and a curse. But with that in mind, it's the fallback is you probably can still do close grip incline press, but you need to use a shoulder saver pad or like a board or something that's going to limit to a partial range movement that's going to take that shoulder rotation out if the shoulders are what's the issue, which I assume is what it is. And then I think it's even a better exercise, because now it's almost 100% tricep extension with very little shoulder rotation, where as most know, the best exercise that's tricep extension without shoulder rotation is the JM press. So what ends up happening is that the incline becomes the JM press where you can't use your lats. It's like, oh shit, now you're really working the fuck out of your triceps, especially if you let it drift just a little bit, kind of like a JM. But as from what I've seen, there's exercises that are necessary for the sport you do. Strongman, if you're going to continue to compete, there's things that you have to do. You have to find a way to do it. Sometimes there's going to be pain involved, sometimes not. Sometimes you're lucky, and it's not the case. Other times, some of those movements are no longer, you can't do them.
Right. And
that's the day you're done. Because if you can't do what has to be done to be able to be at your competitive standard. For me, I lifted no matter how hurt I was, but when I can't hold the bar, I can't squat with no hands on the bar. I guess I could have tried to learn it. I saw Sam Byrne do it one time with like 800 pounds or something stupid. But I mean, nobody competes where you go to a meet, you see some dude just, balancing a bar on his back. Nor did I want to. So you start looking at things a little bit more critically, like what am I doing and what is the purpose? If you're doing something strictly for hypertrophy, then use a fucking machine. It's almost impossible to get hurt using a machine. Then you get the argument, well, it's not a three-dimensional movement. It doesn't work on all planes. You know what? Fuck, I don't give a fuck.
My other option was doing nothing.
All I want to do is train my fucking pecs.
Right.
I don't care. I just want the fucking pecs trained. So if it's a dumbbell press or if it's a machine press, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
Will the dumbbell press work better to help my bench? Probably, but I'm not training it to work my bench anymore. I'm going to do the things that I have to do to make certain exercises stronger that I'm trying to push to get stronger, which is just my own stupid way of training. But the rest of the time, it's like I'm not going to do anything that hurts, and I'm not going to I don't train for pump either. So it's just, but that's where the machines come in. I mean, as you get older, the machines become more and more of your friend, or ways to try to lock in movements that stabilize it more, than.
Well, what about the box squat? Because I get my balls busted all the time because I box squat instead of regular squat. I use a wide stance, and my depth is questionable. But I'm sitting at a point to where, I'll be 42 in a couple of days, and I've been training with a purpose in the gym since I was about 15, something like that. And at no point in my life have I ever been able to do what people would call a regular squat more than 4 or 5 weeks without some kind of pain, knee pain or hip pain. At no point have I been able to consistently train with intensity with, a full, deep squat without pain.
But you can box squat.
I can box squat with extreme intensity 52 weeks a year.
Yeah.
Without pain.
And you can recover faster from it.
Absolutely.
So it's
so maybe it's not the best thing to do for whatever, but I can do it consistently, and I can do it with a bunch of different variations, and I can not get hurt.
Yeah, I'm very biased, with the box squat, and I made a blog post of 20 reasons why you could box squat. I could also make 20 reasons why you shouldn't box squat. So it's still going to be an individual thing. But if you're doing any type of squatting and there's pain, and then you go in the box and there's no pain, and you don't compete in the squat,
right,
then you're stupid not to use the box because you're going to recover better, and the depth doesn't matter because you're not competing in it. So I have 2 prosthetics, so I don't want to go lower than 90 degrees. And whenever I say parallel or 90 degrees, people assume that's crease of the hip to the knee. Well, it's not. When I look at the fucking anatomy, and it's the hip joint and the knee, and I want to actually be a couple inches above that. And that's just something that I came up with because that was a restriction post-surgery for like 6 weeks or something like that. Now, I could, squat lower if I wanted to, but if I'm going to squat heavy, I'm going to make sure I'm staying in a range that is the safest I can possibly do. And the box is the safest way to do that for several reasons. It's especially the older that you get. As long as you know how to fucking box squat, you're not crashing on the box. You're not, trying to bounce off the box. You're doing a box squat. Sit tight, relax and flex. Just the action of the glute. Nate Harvey explained this great in a Instagram live the other day. Just the glute relaxing and flexing, simulates a lot of sport. It simulates starting movements. It simulates what happens kind of when you run, and so there's some degree of specificity, but I think specificity kind of gets completely lost in the weight room for athletes because the whole weight room is GPP. Specificity is important in the weight room for powerlifters, Olympic weightlifters, strongman, because there is SPP and in the movements or, specific stuff in the movements that we're doing. But I can go on and on and on. I mean, the box forces you, to brace. It forces you to take your time. If you miss, you're not going to,
right.
Let's say what typically happens when you see somebody miss and it's a catastrophe, if it's a bad miss, the knee caves in.
Right.
It's never going to happen on a box.
Right.
You're going to go down, maybe the knee will cave in, but then the box is going to catch you.
You can pick up your feet if you have to once you're on the. I see people do it all the time. They get to the box, pick up their feet, move it around.
Yeah.
You can wait there until 5 or 6 people can come over and unload the bar.
Yeah, and you don't want to miss, mind you. You don't want to miss, but it makes it easier for the spotters and everything else because now you're not going to tear their biceps. I mean, we can. The static to the dynamic, there's the whole thing there. From that standpoint, it's kind of, if you think about it, it's kind of like a plyometric in a way, except your ass is your feet, where you sit, relax, stand, compare that to a jump, Well,
as a coach, it's a huge assessment tool for me.
Yes.
Because with a regular squat, there's so many things that can go wrong that I have difficulty watching someone regular squat and picking out exactly what they're doing wrong and then saying it in a way that they can understand and fix it. But if they're box squatting on a video that they sent me, I can break it down, slow motion, come to still shots. I can figure out what they did. I can send them the still shots with an explanation and say, this is what's going on wrong with your squat, and this is how to fix it. And for me, it's a very easy communication tool.
Oh yeah,
that.
most definitely. When I do video reviews that people will send me, and if they're not on a box and their squat's a mess, usually it's not, what I'm getting isn't a complete mess. It's more just a breathing, bracing type of thing, where everybody does this stupid upper back shrug thing. So just fixing that dumbass thing. But if it is a train wreck and it's like, oh God, this is going to go back and forth for 3 days, and it's like, next time just box squat and send it to me. So then they box squat, and then it's typically, okay, next time I want you to sit, pause, stand up. All right. Then I can start saying, okay, sit in the middle of the box, because their knees are, weight forward, right? So if I tell them to, try to get a straighter shin angle, they're going to try to move their foot forward, and then they're going to fall over and all this other stuff. If I tell them to sit their butt back in the middle of the box, they can understand that, and then sit, pause, and usually within a week, it's able to be fixed. And then going back to something that you were saying about strongman events that people suck at, if it's something that they're really, really bad at, I put it as part of their warm up.
Right.
So it's just a bar,
right.
Or
you could do that every single day.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, if you were a basketball player, you would shoot around every single day.
Yeah.
Especially if there was something wrong with your free throw or your jump shot.
Yeah, I mean, think about how, and I'm sure you do the same thing, because about everybody I know does the same thing that box squats. Your first couple sets, you're just standing there with your arms crossed, facing away, opposite the rack, just sitting on the box. You're like, okay, I'm not ready yet.
Right.
Then you do it again. It's like, fuck, I need to put a couple more boards in here and move it up. Okay, that felt right. Okay, now let's take a couple boards out. Okay, now I'm on the board. I'm supposed to, now here I'm where I'm supposed to be. Then you get that one rep. It's like, okay, we're going.
Yeah, and the older I get, I think my stance is different every single week when I box squat. But it takes a couple of sets with me with just my body weight, or me with just my body weight in the bar, of setting up and saying, well, how do my hips feel today? What's the exact position that my feet need to be in? So I'm not totally screwing up my hip today.
So if it's strongman, and let's say they suck at stones, their technique is terrible. They don't have to use a heavy stone. They can just use a 40-pound med ball, and do some general warm up, some ab, lower back work, stuff like that first, and then you put in, 3 sets of 10 light med ball in slow tempo. So think of what they're going to do there, because now they're going to squat down. They're going to squat deep. They're going to round the back. They're going to flex the abs. They're going to do everything that you want them to do to be warmed up to be able to squat or pull. And they get 20 more reps on how to pick up a stone.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Every client that I get wants to go in and do a max stone.
Yeah.
Well, everybody else was doing it.
Yeah.
There's, my training partner was going heavy today, so I just went heavy instead. Well, how many stones did you load? 3. So we had 3 chances to fix what was going wrong.
Exactly. Now you put it in at, say, even 3 sets of 10. Over a month, you got 100 repetitions.
Exactly.
Of damn near perfect technique.
Right.
Which is going to have a significant carryover. Or what we would call sport specificity or dynamic correspondence, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're looking for in the weight room. If you're a strongman or a power lifter, is what's going to carry over best to the event. And when training's training, it's just when I tell people, look, I have not personally worked with strongmen, so I would rather you work with somebody else. That's not because I can't design a program for strongman. It's because I don't know the intricacies of, and I can't say the word, but I don't know the mental gymnastics associated with knowing when somebody's full of shit, when they're not, when they're overreaching, when they're not. And there's a whole mental aspect to power, to all these sports.
Well, it's the same thing with powerlifting. I mean, I've got friends here today. I don't know how to run an athlete, a power lifter at a meet. I don't. I can coach you in the gym. I can get you better numbers in the gym, but I cannot run you at a powerlifting meet. I have no experience. You don't want me doing that. So I've got one client sitting over here, and I've got one friend, Nick, over here. And if I've got a client competing at a meet, I will pay him to work with that client at the meet, because he knows how to run the client really, really well, and keep everything calm and smooth. He knows all the little details, things to say, things to do, every button to push, and when to turn that knob and which direction to turn it. So I'm smart enough to know as a coach that I can't do that, and someone else needs to.
Yeah.
In order for my client to be happy.
Yeah, and most training is, and we'll get into that a little bit more because you've been doing online training since before it was called online training. Most training is very, very not auto-regulated, because you got to teach them how to auto-regulate, but most training, it changes significantly from shit. It can be from exercise to exercise, from workout to workout, from week to week. What you have planned out may not necessarily be, it isn't going to be what's going to actually happen. There has to be things to change. But to circle back earlier, you said the training in groups, and you just kind of demonstrated the importance of that, of having somebody help, at a strongman competition, because when you train in groups, there's things that you'll pick up from the better lifters, the intangibles that really make a huge difference. Like, if they're training with you, if they're watching your videos, they're going to think, wow, man, this guy is getting after it. He's fucking hitting his head. He's going crazy. He's fucking, straining and maxing out. But they don't see that, they're only seeing the last 2 seconds before the lift.
Right.
So they don't see what you did for 5-10 minutes before that, which could have been laying on the floor playing with your kids, just completely in a relaxed state. They don't see how long it takes or how little it takes to be able to flick the switch, to be able to get into the mindset to do the lift, because people don't film that stuff, nor do we want to see it, right?
I did shoot a couple of videos this year where I just went in the gym, turned the camera on, and just let it roll. I didn't edit anything out except whatever kind of music I had to edit out for YouTube. And those videos did not get a great response.
No, it's boring. It's boring because most training is boring. But
even the dynamic effort box squats, and that's the videos that I think, because I'm doing 8 to 12 sets of 2, and I tend to do a lot of waves in my training this year, where I'll do within those 12 sets, maybe the first 5 sets are with chains. When those 5 sets are over, immediately the chains pop off. I throw the bands on that are equal to whatever the chains were, and then my next 5 sets, without breaking the 60-second cycle, is with the bands. And then immediately after that, I throw a set of chains back on top of that for another double, and then another set of chains on back on that for another double. But all of the verbal cues and the mental coaching that goes on between every single set, for me, when it's just me in the gym and I'm talking to myself and I'm figuring out after my set of 2, I'm walking around, I hit the nose torque again to wake up. I realize that my chest wasn't up. I'm going down in the box and I'm losing my arch and regaining it to come back up. I didn't have my abs out. I'm forgetting to brace, and that's when my back is hurting. I'm not firing off my hamstrings. My feet were moving, and all the little things that I pick up that's wrong with my box squat that most people don't, because they're just watching the video and looking at the plates on the bar and the fact that my face is purple. That's what's cool about the video. But if you want to learn, then you need to learn everything that I said to myself between every single set. And that's me coaching myself.
Yeah. Or if there's training partners there, they would have been telling you, they would have been correcting from that standpoint.
Yeah, most of my training partners have learned not to bother me during training at all. That getting close to me is a really, really bad thing during training.
Yeah.
But they are getting better and better about when they realize I'm getting close to my first set, stepping, up to me and saying, "Don't forget to," or they will yell from a distance, small things that they're picking up.
Yeah. Well, if it's a small verbal cue and it fixes, you're not gonna bitch at them for,
exactly. And one of the guys threw out the term brace, and I really hate the term brace.
Well, break your belt. Come up with something that works for you.
Yeah, well, I hate the term brace, but for some reason I've been yelling at that to myself the last 6 months or so, and it's helping me. Just that verbal cue, as dumb as I hate that, it's helping me kind of stick my midsection into a single position, and I'm having less and less back pain when I squat.
But the other things that intermediates can learn from the advanced guys is, how often do they sit down between sets or do they stand up? For instance, when I squat, I never sit down until I'm done. Other people, Joe Sullivan will sit down. He's training for a meet, so he's trying to keep things as specific as he possibly can. How long and, what's the duration of rest periods between squats compared to accessories? If you're breathing hard, after a set, breathing like a freight train, do you hit the ground? Do you walk around? How long do you wait?
Right.
There's all these little things that can.
And you do learn that by being in a crew, by seeing all of these individuals.
You see it, so you see there's a difference between what the advanced guys are doing and there's a difference between what the beginners are doing.
Right. So when you get to a meet or a contest, you may not have been in that situation before, but you've seen somebody else do it.
Yeah. Whereas now that technology is the thing and everything likes to bitch about the technology, I can tell you with pure certainty that the more advanced lifters, they'll use their phones, they will film their set, or they'll hand the camera off to have somebody film their set. They might look at the set and then they put it back. They're not texting anything.
Right.
They're using it as a tool to film the set. Then once that exercise is over, the main exercise is over, and they need to move on to a different mindset, then they may check messages and stuff like that. Where intermediates, the beginners, they'll actually, film it, post it right then and there. Yeah. Where these guys are like, I need this. They're not worried about that. They can post it fucking later.
Oh man, do I bust my training partner's balls right now, or do I let it slide?
So it's these are things that you see though. You see that I've noticed being around, the more advanced lifters to the intermediate lifters, and how technology kind of plays, because it's not going to go away. How it kind of plays into that. And, they're not having conversations, on their phone during the main lift, even if shit's going on.
But that advanced lifter who, even if they hate technology, that advanced lifter was more likely to do whatever it takes to get better. Whatever it takes. And if that means, spending money on a video camera or a phone or whatever, just to video it, even if he hates technology, then that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, and every set, every top set is recorded.
Right.
So you can tell the difference where if it's an intermediate or beginner, only the top one. Only one of set, because they're only recording it for Instagram.
I hit record when I get in the gym and let it roll.
Yeah.
And then I go home and edit everything out. And I picked that up from martial arts because I was losing fights, or I wasn't seeing what the judges were seeing. And if you're a boxer, you go home and you study tape. You study your opponent. If you are a football player, and you play on Saturday, what are you doing on Sunday and Monday? You're reviewing tape.
Yeah. What
went wrong? What went right? How do we fix it? So if every other sport can sit down and review tape, why can't we?
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing with this that I really can't fucking figure out to save my life is I have 2 Instagram accounts. I have one account that I use daily. So when I swipe through that one, it takes like 3 minutes and I get a little message that says you've seen all posts, because I don't follow that many people and I don't read the post, so I use it just for the AMAs, the Q&As type stuff, and the DMs. Then I have a fake account, which I follow every idiot in the world. Okay. Just to get a pulse on what's going on with the industry. I might check that one a couple times a month, and I really don't fall down a rabbit hole, but I always get frustrated. It doesn't take me very long to be able to say, okay, I've had enough of this shit. I can't fucking figure out to save my life is they'll film a squat or a deadlift and it looks like shit. I mean, how do they not know this looks like shit, right? Because I'm looking at who they follow. This is how fucked up this gets with me. It's like, oh my God, this is the worst fucking squat I've ever seen in my life. Maybe nobody's ever showed them. Well, who do they follow? So then I go click on who they follow and start looking like, well, their squats are good. I'm like, okay, this fucking person isn't even looking at the other people's squats. Because if they were, their squats wouldn't be this fucking bad. All right. And they're not even looking at theirs. It's like, why? oh my God, it's like, this is terrible. You're posting this. Are you posting it for validation so people say, hey, good job?
You're not for sure if it's a joke or not at some point. I sit down on Sundays. I wake up, I eat with my family. I really don't speak at all because it's Strongman Sunday for me. I go to the gym. I'm there till 5-6 hours. I'm there till it's done. And my wife is really patient with me, by the way. I come home. I lay on the floor with the kids for about an hour and play, get everyone to bed, and then I sit down with my computer and I start reviewing videos of clients. And my wife will sit on the couch just to hear all the comments I make as I'm reviewing all my clients' emails because they want their programming first thing Monday. Mm-hmm. So I'm killing myself all night long, and I'm like, honey, come over here and look at this. Do you think they even watched this video before they sent it to me?
No, they couldn't have.
Because there's no way they would not be embarrassed to send me this video that I've been correcting them on for the last, 3 months. I mean, how did you not see the 12 things wrong with your video? Mm-hmm. You know?
Or for me, it's like crazy things. Like, at what point in time did you think that taking 15 steps to set up your squat was a good thing? Because I don't see anybody else doing it.
I go through that all the time.
You know, and it's just crazy stuff. It's like if you just watched your feed, all right, and wasted your time like everybody says it is, then you would have realized that most people don't do that. So if they don't do that,
okay, and what's brilliant about my clients is to see them finally listen to me and make progress, and then I'm absolutely thrilled. So it's I don't want to.
I mean, I would.
They should know who they are, the people that I'm busting their chops on. But when I'm thinking about a deadlift, and it drives me insane when I see people deadlift with their head down nowadays, looking at the floor, I go back to that photo, and you know what photo I'm talking about? That photo of Ed Cohn deadlifting 900 sumo. I mean, that is just his head's up, his chest is out, his feet are absolutely perfect. I mean, it's like that should be a statue somewhere. Mm-hmm. That photo. It should be a statue. And people squatting with their head down or their belly's not out or not presenting their chest. Have you never seen someone squat before? But when you and I we go back to the 90s, magazines I bought magazines every single month and just divulged them, broke them down. But it was a photo.
Yeah, we had to learn how to squat from a fucking photo.
Yeah, so I had to look picture perfect like this, man mm-hmm. or woman in the photo, and that picture was ingrained into my head. Now, is it just that everything is a video? Because it was the Instagram 15-second video. So nobody's set lasted more than 15 seconds there for, a year or two on Instagram?
Yeah.
And now it's at least a minute, so people can finally do some 5s or 6s or mm-hmm. something.
But they still have access to see the best in the world.
Absolutely, and that's your point. Is people should,
they should be looking at that.
If we have access, go out and find other people and really study it and break it down. Because that's what I do. Man, I've watched you squat so many times. I've been watching Joe getting ready, Joe Sullivan getting ready mm-hmm. for his this contest coming up, and it's just amazing to watch him get ready, and such technical efficiency. With everything that he does, but I sit down and watch a video. I don't even care how much weight's on the bar. I'm studying knee position and foot position and chest position, how his elbows are.
Well, all that matters. I mean, the stronger you get, all those little things are the minor things that are going to be the difference between him making or missing a lift mm-hmm. because it's a lot of fucking weight. When he was squatting 450 pounds, the room for error is a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. You can fall forward and recover. He falls forward with 900, he's probably not going to be able to recover very well. So you have to make sure he's not going to fucking fall forward, mm-hmm. No matter what. From mental, physical, technical, all those standpoints have to be 100% dead on, and it starts with how you unrack or set up, the squat and kind of work from there. But all those little things can be taught and practiced with a beginner. From the very beginning. They may not be able to really understand the concept, of getting the lats tight for a squat, but they certainly can understand the concept of, squeezing the bar, trying to, wedge under the bar, trying to stay tight, no extra movement, mm-hmm. That kind of stuff they can understand and do. and don't need a whole lot of load to be able to do that. Now, if it's a broomstick, it's going to be hard to do some of that stuff.
Right.
So with a broomstick, you can practice basic mechanics, sitting back, coming up, but you do need a little bit of weight on there to be able to practice, getting tight. And for the, to flip it to the older generation that, is kind of like me, just trying to find a way to keep doing something heavy because it's what you love to do. And you're dinged up and you're nicked and stuff like that. Sometimes, and physical therapists and doctors are going to cringe at this, sometimes injuries help, because if something hurts, it forces you. I have to be fucking tight, because if I'm not, this is going to hurt. It already hurts. So if I'm not tight, it's going to hurt like a motherfucker.
You're ringing a bell there.
So like popping a rib out, I've had that happen a couple of times. So you put one belt on, then you put a second belt around.
A knee wrap as well.
A knee wrap or a belt or whatever it is. But those times that I've had to do that is probably the tightest I've ever been in my entire life when I squatted, because to not do so is wrenching pain, because it's already hurting. So I can deal with the hurting, but the wrenching pain, so that forces you, to be able to stay tight, to actually control tempo, so you're not being a complete 100% idiot, and to focus on all the technical aspects. As long as you can get your mind off, it's not going to blow off. Well, it is, or you got to understand it's either going to, if it's going to go, it's going to go, and you just have to accept that. All right, if it's going to go, it's going to go. I'm not going to worry about it because I have to fucking lift it.
Right.
So I'm going to put that in a different drawer for now, and I'm going to worry about just fucking doing what I have to do to be able to do this weight. And usually it ends up being some of your better sets, and I've always said this, and it's cool to see Joe Sullivan starting to quote and say the same thing. Every lifter and every top lifter, they all go into the meet a little dinged up.
Yeah.
Every strongman is probably the same way. Everybody's going in. Nobody has the right to go in bitching about how much they hurt.
Right.
Because I'll guarantee you there's somebody else there that hurts fucking way more, that just isn't saying anything. And in a competitive environment, you want them all to actually kind of think you're 100%. But normally the person who wins is the one that's least hurt. So the whole goal of the last 6 or 8 weeks of training is don't get any more fucked up than you are at that 6-week point, because that's usually where most of the, some of the tapering is going to, the bigger sets are going to happen, then you're going to start a taper. So you can't let the bigger sets put you out, but you can't get more fucked up, or it's going to pay its toll.
Oh, you're not going to get any stronger, but you can get a heck of a lot weaker in those last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. And the mental gymnastics it will play, for a lot of people that don't understand that, this is kind of normal, but
I want to max out a week before the meet.
Yeah.
Or the contest.
Fucking stupid,
Yeah. I usually sit down with a lot of my strongman clients, and if we are 14 to 21 days out, I want them to make a list of what hurts and be honest with me. If your ankle feels a little funny, be honest with me and tell me. If your bicep feels a little funny, shoulder feels a little, be honest with me. Then we start pulling everything back 21 days out, 3 weeks out, and just cruise in. I'd rather them do less strongman events or just warm up only on the strongman events, and then go in and do some actual, pulley rows or anything, shoulder laterals with a dumbbell, anything, so we can, keep the muscle growing, make the joint feel better, and then don't get screwed up. I would rather increase calories by 1,000 calories a day and go up a weight class than I would see you walk into that contest and get hurt. If you're hurting going in, the chance of you getting injured just probably doubles. You've already got the tendonitis setting in. You're going to pick up an Atlas stone, a sandbag, a super yoke. You're going to clean a log press. There's a great chance you're going to tear a quad. There's a great chance you're going to pull a hamstring, tear a bicep off the bone. I mean, I know very few strongmen that haven't torn a bicep. It's just one of those injuries that's going to happen. So, if I can prevent it, if you can prevent it, prevent the freaking surgery, prevent the bicep, back off. It's not worth it the last few days.
In my experience, from what I've seen, and this isn't reviewing any statistical data, because the problem with any statistical data when it comes to injuries is most lifters either forgot about the pull that they had,
Right.
or they're not going to tell you about it.
Right.
Or if you look at any medical type stuff, they're not going to go see the doctor because they already
Absolutely.
know what the
No.
doctor's going to
Yeah.
say. But from what I've seen, rarely do I see injuries happen in competition. They happen. All right. I'm not going to say they don't happen. That would be a lie. But it's rare. It rarely happens during a competition. And when it does happen during a competition, you're usually going to see the guy pull out before anything really bad happens, because they know, it's coming, or they've been nursing it for the last 4 weeks to be able to know. Rarely, though. Rarely have I ever seen it happen on a single.
Right.
It's usually a triple. I would say in most cases from what I've seen, it's a triple. Second to that, it would be some type of set of 5. And then third, just actually before the triple, accidental. Catching
Lose your
somebody.
balance.
Catching somebody's
Oh yeah.
squat,
Right.
tearing a bicep. Somebody, is benching and some dumbass bumps the bar and there goes the pack. So accidental would be dropping a weight on your foot, that kind of shit. That would be first, then it would be the triples and so forth. So people are afraid of what they shouldn't be afraid of. All right. And not doing what they should be doing in exchange for things that could actually get them more hurt. Like pushing a AMRAP set
Right.
of 8 to 15, if you're trying to fight back an injury, is so counterproductive. It's
Right.
not even, it's unfathomable to me.
Oh, the only thing that saved me the last 2.5 years of coming back and competing is the fact that I normally walk into a contest not hurt, not injured. Where it seems like all the other guys that are over 40, they've been competing for like 3-4 years, something like that. They don't have the years and years of experience competing in strongman, so they're still sitting there 7 days out killing themselves on deadlifts. And I'm watching them post these videos online. I'm thinking, just keep going. Should I tell them to back off, or should I just let them just keep going?
That's bullshit. Let me quantify. All right, because there's a difference between what you think is not hurt and other people. So the morning of that competition, when you go to get out of bed, are you just popping out of bed, or are you rolling the fuck out of bed?
I roll out of the bed.
You roll out of the bed, all right? And then as soon as
I have not stood up from a couch in at least 2 years.
Okay, and when you go to stand up, do your feet fucking kill you so
Yes,
bad
they hurt
that you
now.
can barely get
Yeah.
to the fucking toilet?
Yes.
Okay, so you are fucking hurt. You just have no acute injuries at that time.
Correct. I don't have a torn bicep.
Nothing's torn off, okay? So this is the difference between, oh God, this is what fucking drives me crazy when it comes to stupid, like that fucking weed oil shit I was ranting about last night on the fucking Instagram thing. Whatever that stupid fucking Herb Strong, I didn't know that Herb Strong was a company. I thought it was like a trainer. And then I looked it up and I'm like, they're fucking rubbing this shit.
Did you try it?
Fuck no.
Why not? I am.
Oh, Jesus
I don't even know
Christ.
I don't even know if it works, but I'm
It ain't
trying.
gonna fucking work.
But I'm willing to try it, Dave.
fuck you.
If you sat in a bathtub with the crystals, if you did the crystal
I'll
bath,
fucking try it, but then I'll tell everybody it don't fucking work.
that's fine, but you got to try it, because what if it
I
did?
do not fucking have to try
And
no
if it
stupid
did
shit
work,
like
we know
that.
you're not going to tell anybody, because that's going to be your new edge.
Well, here's
in
the
gym.
thing. These guys that are fucking doing it, they're like, yeah, it's the greatest thing in the world. It's like, you're not even hurt in the first place. And if it did help you, then you're being hurt is what I would consider just being a fucking wimp. You don't really hurt, because if you really hurt, that shit wouldn't help. Because I've really hurt, and fucking cortisone don't even help. So you don't really fucking hurt. So what it is you're just you're a wimp or a fucking liar. It's one of the two. There's no in between. You see what I'm saying? So if it really helped, then it's placebo because you're a wimp and you can't handle delayed onset muscle soreness, or you're a fucking liar and just doing it to try to pump up product. Now, I have taken DMSO gel, right? And mixed it with Voltaren gel,
Yes.
stirred it with a spoon, and actually crushed up aspirin and put that in there, and crushed up Mobic and put that in there, and like rub that fucking shit on. And I had to go see Serrano because I had shit growing up under my fucking skin. So I
had no problem with that at all.
It didn't help, but it actually created an infection that lasted for about 2 fucking weeks. But it didn't fucking help, and I know it got in there. So, Voltaren gel, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's just, I don't understand, that kind of stuff. For me, if it's a liniment, and I don't know how we got off on this, the hotter it is, like the Kramer Red Hot, because it's so hot that it hurts so bad that it distracts you from the pain.
Absolutely.
So that's what's worked for me is
the first thing I did when I got to the States is I went to Walmart and bought the hottest cream they had. Mm-hmm. And then I got one of those back scratcher sponges for the shower. So then I just, when I go to the gym, I can't reach my back. I can't reach my lower back. So I can't put that cream on my back. My back's killing me. So I cover that little back scratcher that's got to be 3 feet long with the hot cream, and then I can rub that on my back. And then everyone in this gym's like, what the heck's wrong with you?
Yeah. I got some shit over there that'll light your back up.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is, my
it's going to go down your butt crack though. So your
it's
asshole,
wonderful.
But
it's
not.
But does your back hurt? No.
It burns, but my asshole later isn't worth.
Perfectly fine. I'll accept it.
It makes the hemorrhoids worse.
My youngest son came running in the living room of the Airbnb we're staying at the other day, and he would just run over to me with his mouth stuck open, tongue stuck out, starts licking my arm. And I'm like, that's not uncommon for my autistic son anyway. But then he starts running around the house, and my wife's like, what's wrong with him? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, he won't tell me, which is a really funny autistic joke. I think it's funny. And about 30 minutes later, I'm in the bedroom, I'm looking through my gym bag, and he's taking out that stick that I've been covering the end of it with hot cream. And he was in there licking it. So his tongue was covered with that super fire hot cream. And then we're running through there trying to figure out how to get this stuff off his tongue.
Now, because you're in Cyprus, can you get capsicum in a higher dose or potency than what we would get here?
No.
Because I think that's the limiting factor.
Yeah.
If you can get that in a higher...
I can get similar.
If you can get that in a higher dose, because that affects nerve endings, right? Because that's basically how it happens.
I just got a big jar like this. So I just use more.
But the issue with it is it's got to get deep enough to actually impact where the problem is.
It's much hotter there than it is here, so that activates much quicker.
The heat, I think, is more of a distracting type of thing.
That works.
Which is fine, because it's placebo. It pisses you off. It's hot as fuck. But
the pain goes away.
Well, it's still there. It's just hot. It's hot pain instead of cold pain, and cold pain is worse than hot pain.
It works.
So anyhow, to go back, you weren't fucking healthy going into the meet, where you said that you were. But anyhow, that's the point I wanted to put out there, though. When we were all younger, we went into some meets that everything was great. Then, the longer you do this, the wear and tear. It's just wear and tear. It's going to happen. The cool thing now is, and this is kind of a different pivot segue, is with this, God damn it, what is it? Powerlifting or openpowerlifting.com, which I think I give them a shout out on every fucking thing I do. All those people, because I get a lot of people now because the West Side versus the World, and now it's really getting bad because it's on Netflix. So people are like sending me messages like, I used to fucking lift multiply. I had a 700 bench, and it's like, okay, I looked their fucking name up and they're nowhere. I'm like, you're a lying motherfucker. So, it was like an open freeway of being able to lie about what you lifted in the past for the past 20 some years.
Right.
Because there was no way to validate it. So now there's people saying, I had a 700 pound bench, multiply. And then you go look their name up and you see they did one fucking meet,
right?
And the bench was like 400, or they did one meet and it was like a deadlift meet or whatever it's going to be. And it's like, no, because I used to train at West Side. I'm like, okay, really? Yeah, the one on Dimmers. I'm like, okay. I was there the whole fucking time.
Right.
I don't fucking remember you at all.
So either they were totally insignificant or they're completely lying.
Something funny is last time I had lunch with Louie, it was a couple months ago. He told me somebody said it to him. Like he was out in a restaurant somewhere, and they said he had a West Side shirt on, and they said something along the lines of, do you train at West Side Barbell? And then said that they actually trained there. So then Louis introduced himself. The guy had to feel like a fucking idiot. So it's not just.
What do you say to that?
You don't. You just walk away. He thought it was funny. And I think it's funny. But what I like now is that you can validate. People saying that they did this, and this. It's like, okay, I can go look. And there's still some meets I'm sure that are not put in there, but if somebody's competed for 10 years, one of their meets is definitely going to be in there for sure, without a doubt. And so it's been one of the greatest tools, because I can go and they'll send me something, and then I'll reply back and say, look, man, I just tried to look you up. Did you compete under a different name? Like, is it Matthew instead of Matt, or is it Robert instead of Bob, or whatever it is? Because to the best of my knowledge,
it was a small show.
You got a 325 bench with gear, and so that's, I don't even know why I went down that route, but irregardless, the other master lifters that with the master strongman is that obviously it's not the same events as what we see in the world's strongest man. Is it fewer days? How do they adjust it for the masters?
What they've done the last, I guess, 2 years, we usually had one event on Friday and then 3 events on Saturday, and the top 10 survivors moved on to Sunday and did 2 events on Sunday. So I have not done well enough. My first year, I'd already decided that even if I made the top 10 and qualified for the last day, there's no way I could do it. I couldn't have made it. There's no way I could have done that and not been in the hospital. And I was just going to be perfectly happy with 10th position if I got anywhere close to that. But it's a chore, and it's an all day thing. You're there in the morning, you compete all day long. But it is great to see the Masters making a comeback, because when I first began in the sport, they had amateur nationals, and it was all one contest. They had the teens, the women's, and the Masters all together, all in one day. And now it's grown so much that everything has to be split up and broken down. And then we had, I think we had 25 Masters men at World's Strongest Man last year, which is, they had 30 people qualify. Quite a few guys didn't make the cut. And then we still had 25 actually show up, uninjured and go through and go through the contest. And then they are legit heavyweights. I mean, that's like when I first began the sport, a 700-pound super yoke was heavy, and as masters, we did 1,000-pound super yoke. I mean, that's no joke. That's heavier than what they use at World's Strongest Man. Mm-hmm. And it's absolute no joke events. They are heavy, bone-crushing events. They are dangerous level events, and that's exciting in training, because at any second you could get hurt. Mm-hmm. It's injured, and if all you had to do was go to a contest and squat 315, or bench 185, first of all, it wouldn't be that exciting. And at night, you wouldn't go to bed thinking, tomorrow I got to squat. And I'm sitting here, about to be 42, with nearly 2 decades in this sport, with 3 decades of killing myself in the gym. And I'm still going to bed every night. I can't sleep at night because I'm laying in bed thinking, what am I going to do to make sure I squat this tomorrow? Did I eat enough today? I'm going to get up and go eat one more time. Did I drink enough today? What am I going to do to be better? And I'm looking online trying to find out new methods and new ideas, and I'm throwing out the ones that I know that are total crap. I'm picking up new ideas, 20 years in, and I'm still thrilled and excited to figure out what I can do to get better. But yeah, I only have that excitement because the events are heavy, or they're dangerous, or they're new. If it was really light, I wouldn't train hard for it. I wouldn't be excited about it. It wouldn't be fun. But there's that danger factor, that everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. And I know that I'm giving more than anybody else out there. I firmly believe this, and no disrespect to any of the other athletes at Masters World's Strongest Man. I firmly believe that the last 2 years I've committed myself more, and I've trained harder and smarter than everybody else that was there. And I don't think many of those guys would disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
It just, this is what I am, and this is where I'm at. But I can't imagine doing anything else. I can't imagine halfway doing it. I think that's the thrill, doing everything you possibly can. Turn every single key that you possibly can. I think that's the excitement.
Yeah, you being an old meathead, I guess is what I would call it. When you're a lifetime meathead, 20 years competing, there's no halfway doing it. It's you're doing it, or you're helping other people do it, and then you're not doing it anymore. There is no.
It's not fun to halfway do it.
You can't. You personally, mentally can't.
No.
It's either, you do it until you can't do it anymore, and you'll know when that is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like it's gonna, be this big decision that you have to make. It's gonna be like, fuck, that's it. And as long, like a philosophy that I try to always keep was to never look back and say, what if, because that would drive me nuts for the rest of my life. So I wanted to make sure when I went into Westside, that was the philosophy that I had going in, because to me, I was kind of retired before that because it just wasn't working. I wasn't getting better. I wasn't getting stronger. Then it became more a matter of, what if, what if I didn't go, I started asking that, well, what if I don't do this and I don't find out? Then to go there and basically disrespect and not listen to Louis for about a year, was kind of contradicting my own philosophy, which kicked myself in the teeth later on when I started thinking about it. Because, why am I here if I'm not going to actually do, what I'm being told to do? Because if I get thrown out of here, which was a strong possibility, then I'm going to be asking myself, what if I would have just tried what he said? And
I think everyone owes it to themselves to live 100% the life of whatever sport they want to do.
Yeah.
And if you want to be, if you want to be a strongman or a powerlifter, I think at some point in your life you need to drop everything, and I mean everything. You need to drop your job. You need to drop, whether it's if you're a young guy, sacrifice relationships and sacrifice having a family, sacrifice money. I know a lot of strongmen through Europe that work controversial jobs, selling controversial products, just to make money. Mm-hmm. Work as a doorman at a bar. That way you have all day to train. Spend every cent that you have. Live in a hole with 5 other guys, or alone, whatever suits you, and just do that. Because chances are, after a year or after 6 months, you're going to say, this is not for me. 100% this is not for me, and then you can walk away, and give yourself 2 years. And if at 2 years, you're going to see amazing progress, and you're either going to say this is what I need to be doing, or you're going to say I gave it everything that I had and I can walk away.
Yeah, the only thing I would disagree with that is I think half the people today coming into any of the strength sports are doing it more as a hobby.
And that's fine.
So that this wouldn't really apply there, but for those people who are doing it to really see if they can, what their best can really be, I do think they have to put it as a very high priority. Maybe not first, but I did, so I'm a hypocrite to be able to say don't put it as your first. All I can do is look back and say I have some regrets from putting it as my first, that I think if it wasn't my first, I could have been better because I would have had more support from the people around me to be able to help me if they weren't excluded,
right.
From that, my wife, kids, stuff like that, putting it above there. But still, that mindset, it's a locked in mindset. I don't know if I would know how to even add a cart at it's like a train. It's like a fucking
Right.
just barreling train. I don't even know if I could have put another car on it. So like to add my wife and my kids is like adding 3 more cars on a fucking train that's already going, as fast as it can. That, it's, so that's the advice I give the younger people is, keep it up there as a high priority. Make sure it's you're doing everything that you can so you don't look back and say what if, but don't do it at the expense, of certain things that are also very important in your life that could help you.
Well, but like I look at my training partner, he just turned 30 the other day, and he's got the injuries of like a 22-year-old, which is basically nothing. He's got the mindset of everything is fresh, but he's 6'6". When I met him, he weighed 120, so 265. He competed his last contest in the UK a couple of months ago, weighed 441. So it took him a year and a half to go drug-free from 265 to 441. I mean, he's just a giant. He's athletic. He can run. He can jump. It's insane amount of strength as well. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you've got to go. You've got to get everything. You've got to go all in. You need to sacrifice, right? You've got so much talent that it's a waste if you don't give it everything. You're not in a marriage. You don't have kids. Financially, you're okay. You're never going to be rich, but you're okay. You have got. I'm going to be really disappointed if you don't give it everything. And my other advice to him was make sure you always have that one person that you can tell everything to. Make sure you have that one person that won't hesitate to pull you back and say, you've gone too far.
I call that your enabler. You need an enabler. Somebody that's okay with all the stupid shit you're going to do.
Of course.
That way, if you hit the ground, somebody calls 911, they get a hold of the enabler and here's what's going on. But
he sends me questions all the time, and he'll say, well, this is the situation. What would you do? And then he'll reply back and he say, wait, not what would you do? What do you think I should do? Because what I would do would be something totally psycho. Mm-hmm. But what I would tell him to do would be something a little more pull back 1 or 2 steps. Mm-hmm. But I think if you see someone with talent, I think you're doing them an injustice if you don't tell them to give it everything they have. Absolutely. Give it absolutely everything. If you saw someone with, the talent to be an all-star in the NBA and you caught them in middle school, would you tell them to pull back and, think about this? No.
No, you never know.
You never know. And the chances are so small, but
how do you know it's not you? You know what I'm saying? It's like you don't know what's around the corner unless you go look. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so people will throw genetics out and say, well, I don't have good enough genetics. Well, you're 6'2", 185 pounds. You can't make that decision until you're like fucking 300 pounds.
Right.
Then you can tell me if you have the genetics or you don't, because look at other people that are your height. What do they weigh? You're not even walking towards the fucking corner to look around to be able to see. It's now we've all seen people that come into these sports and just jump to the top immediately. And those are very, very far outliers. Mm-hmm. And they make up such a minority of the people that are really out there. But now with social media, they're the ones that are going to be the most seen. Mm-hmm. So everybody thinks, well, that's what I have to be like. And it's like, well, okay, maybe that's what you think, powerlifting wise or whatever it is.
But how many of those guys are here today, gone tomorrow?
Exactly. But what I say is look at who's placing 3rd and 4th.
Right.
All right, let's take this guy out of the equation. Let's take these 3 guys out of the equation. So say world's strongest man. Take the 4 top guys out of the equation.
Right.
Could you possibly be there if you were that height and that weight and put in the same number of years? Could you be there taking those other 4 out? All right. That's the question that needs to be asked, because what they do is they'll look at Thor, they'll look at Brian, and they'll say, look, I'm not that fucking big. Mm-hmm. Okay, fucking take them out. Okay. Where do you fall, stature wise, out of the top 10, bone thickness and all that? Where do you fall in there? All right, because all that has to happen is kind of what happened last year.
Right.
And you're world's strongest man.
Right. Well, you look at Martins Licis. He has gained man, he gained a
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from him at all in any way.
Yeah, his progress over the last couple of years is just, it's freaky amazing. And he's gone all in. He's absolutely everything.
And he's still 100%. On an upward trajectory.
Right.
So who knows what he's going to bring next year.
Right.
You know,
but you look at people like Thor and Brian Shaw, both of them were basketball players, by the way. So when they moved to the sport of strongman, they already had the idea of reviewing tape. Diet needs to be pretty good. Recovery is
total athlete
super
mindset.
Yeah, recovery is important. Playing with pain, like Terry Hollins, he's been to World's Strongest Man maybe more than anybody else, and just at a bodybuilding show a couple of weeks ago, looked absolutely phenomenal. He's come to Cyprus and trained with me several times, and I just got a message from someone that asked me on Instagram while he's in the gym if I ever trained when I was sore. And I'm going back to all the years of martial arts, and I remember fighting. I remember going into the fight, and every digit of every toe on my right foot was broke, and I still had to kick with my right foot, for the entire tournament. I never remember fighting when some things weren't extremely hurting. So when I moved into training in the gym, sore, okay. I mean, every athlete's sore, hurt. You just play. So I was talking with Terry Hollins, and people didn't realize that he came from a judo background. So you always play judo, hurt. Something always hurts. And then he went on to rugby. Something's always hurting. So when he made the transfer into strongman, pain, okay, we just expect that. Mm-hmm. And then I have, see guys online, my hamstrings are still sore. I shouldn't deadlift. My hamstrings are sore. I shouldn't go out there and do stones. Or, my shoulders are a little sore, muscular sore. I don't mean like totally screwed up and can't move kind of sore. But, all those guys, they're used to playing with pain. They're used to figuring out ways to fix it, to heal it. And as the sport has evolved, the emphasis on recovery methods, whether it's ice baths and, the level they've taken diet to, over the last several years is absolutely ridiculous. And the amateurs are picking up on this as well. But Eddie Hall goes to World's Strongest Man, and you get to take one person with you. He took his physical therapist. He paid something like $10,000 to have him there for the 2 weeks, just to work with him. Eddie Hall, a lot of people don't, and I talk with Eddie quite a bit. A lot of people don't realize what he gave up to do what he did, and he went and saw his physical therapist. It's called a physiotherapist in the UK. He saw him 7 days a week. So if tonight he trained, basically lower body, the next morning, first thing, he was at the physical therapist's office getting unscrewed up. So then if the next day he did upper body, that night he did upper body, the next morning he was getting his upper body unscrewed up 7 days a week for 18 months, 7 days a week. Hot baths, cold baths, hyperbaric chamber, 7 days a week. Not when you felt like it. Not like people say, I went to the chiropractor. I go to the chiropractor once a month. 7 days a week. That's an investment of going all in. So when it got to World's Strongest Man, he had to win. He had given more than anybody else out there. He had spent more money. He had put more time, more effort than anybody else out there. And he had to come away. There was no other option. He had to walk away with it.
The example I put out there with the muscle soreness is a lot of guys can relate to this because at some point they played football, be it junior high or high school. And you spend the summer fucking off doing whatever you're doing, but then practice starts. And after the first practice, your calves are sore as fuck. I mean, even at a young age where you should recover from anything, they are sore as fuck. So you go the next day and they're still sore as fuck. Could you imagine telling the coach, hey, coach, look, I read online that I need 48 hours for the super compensation cycle for my calves to be able to recover, to be ready to go again. Mm-hmm. I don't know a football coach in the world that would say, hey, that's a good idea. They say, shut up, get out there. And everybody did. I mean, actually, nobody even complained about it. Mm-hmm. The only time the complaints came is when it started to impact ankles or they needed taped or something like that. But the funny thing is after a week, your calves weren't sore anymore.
Right.
So they adapted. So I'm not telling you can go squat every single day, balls out, hard and heavy. What I'm saying is your body adapts. That's what training is it's a state of adaptation to different stimuli that you put your body through to be able to get you ready to do whatever events or sport that you're going to participate in. And some things are going to adapt to different rates than other things. Max effort work's going to adapt different than speed work that's where things get a little weird, if you really look at the science of the super compensation cycle, because you got so many different variables going at different rates. It's max effort is going to recover one way. Repetition method is going to recover one way. Training to failure is going to take a little bit. They're all going to take different rates of time to be able to recover from. But then what we're doing is we're sticking them all together. All right. So it's kind of like if you take one drug, the side effect of that drug. If you add another drug, now you didn't just go 1 + 1 from side effects. It's actually
3, 4, or 5.
3, 4, or 5. Now you put 3, and once you get up to 5 different meds, you are in a state that no pharmacist or doctor can fucking even predict what side effect could actually come from that. And that's kind of what training is all these different stimuli. Want to circle around and go into, some of these are the questions that I saw. You've been training people online for probably 20 years. Damn close to 20 years, 15 years at least.
I've been working with people. I guess that's right.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go back before social media.
Right.
You were working with them then because you were the YouTube guy before you got kicked off of YouTube. Imagine what you could be making now on YouTube if you still would have been able to build your channel.
No royalties are paid to Cypress.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. We don't have copyright laws. We do have copyright laws, but there's absolutely no enforcement whatsoever. Not by TV stations, radio stations. I used to go back when there were DVD rental stores. I used to go and rent a DVD, and there would be a whole wall, and everything on the wall was a DVD that the guy behind the counter had just copied with his computer and then printed out a new cover for the DVD. And that was every DVD store in the country. So, I mean, pirated stuff was what you found at the DVD store. So because we don't have or enforce copyright laws, YouTube will not pay out to anyone in the country of Cyprus. No exceptions.
That's fucked up.
Never made a dime from YouTube. Never made a dime.
How big was your following back then?
I don't know how many people I had. I don't know how many.
I think it was close to 100 grand.
I really have no idea. I had 1,400 videos that were gone in a night, in a flash. They were taken down. So, and most of those were just me talking, giving information. Back when nobody else would talk about anabolics or peptides or anything like. Back before companies actually research chemicals, I was giving information about research chemicals. Just because I really thought that if you were going to learn about a questionable product, you needed to learn about it, or at least get an opinion about it from someone with a real name and a real face, not somebody hiding behind a keyboard, Joe Blow 37. You don't know anything about whoever it is that's giving you information. I wanted you to see somebody's face, somebody's real voice, and my real name, and me to give you my real opinion about anything. And that's what I based the whole channel on.
But from that is when you started to get clients.
More and more clients, yeah.
From that standpoint. Yeah. So now that everybody is an online trainer, how has that changed your perspective of online training? How has it helped your business? Has it hurt your business?
It runs in waves, because I think it hurts it on one way, because there are so many people that can offer not a similar service. They will offer a service at a much cheaper price. And it hurts me because they don't offer a quality service. So what happens there is they associate people that do the same job title that I do with something negative. On the other side, they force me to continue to up my game because more people are getting more and more technology. I can't compete with Chris Duffin. Well, what Chris Duffin does with his company and his website is he spent so much money on technology that it's forced everybody else to start using more and more technology for the people that hire his company for online coaching. Now, I have no idea how he can ever make a profit because he spent so much money setting up all that technology and servers or whatever goes into that. Because I'm still old school with what I do and coaching clients and breaking down and analyzing what they do. But people like him and everybody else, they have forced me to get better at technology and to continue to offer the most competitive service that I can. We had a big issue the last couple of years with professional strongmen doing well at the Arnold and then getting invited to World's Strongest Man. And then the day after their invitation to World's Strongest Man, they realize I need a ton of money for meet prep. Then they start posting on Facebook, I'm taking 20 online clients, here's the sign up. This is what we're going to do. They get the money. They work with the athletes for 3 or 4 weeks. And then they're like, what the heck, man, I've got to work on myself. Now they've got everybody's money. And then they start sending emails to all of the people who have paid them that say, hey, I'm going to have to get back with you after World's Strongest Man is over in 2 months. And I had friends that were paying these World's Strongest Man athletes to get them ready for a meet or a strongman contest that were just, setting 5-6 weeks out, completely stranded. No help, no contact whatsoever. And these guys get away with it because they're a big name. And it's not just one or two of them, it's a lot of them. Yeah. So, and then I've seen people try to go and blast them online. They just get blocked and shut down.
See, it's just fraud.
It really is. But here's the thing, when people say they're an online coach, and you and I had a conversation several years ago where you were helping me set up my business. You told me I was doing everything wrong. And I will say that probably a solid 30% of what you told me, I won't say it was correct or incorrect. I will say about 30% of it I could apply effectively. So that's on me. But when I say I've been doing it for 15 years, how many people are still doing it 15 years later? Because most people are doing it just to get some extra money to spend on their kids for Christmas or because they're trying to raise money to go to a contest. I've been doing it to feed my family for 15 years. Mm-hmm. I remember contacting you maybe before I was a part of Team Elite FTS, and I was broke. I mean, the bank had come to the house twice to repossess my car, broke. And I was desperate and asking you for advice, what the heck can I do? And you gave me the same advice you give me like 5 or 6 times. You know what to do. Figure out whatever it is that you give away for free and do whatever you would normally do in a week, do it in a day. So I sit down and made video after video, 3 and 4 videos a day to build a YouTube channel. I put out, I think you let me put up some articles at Elite FTS and just to get free information, and then my business just continued to pick up and pick up. But if I wasn't offering a good service, I wouldn't still be in business. So that when you look at somebody else who, I used to do that, or I read this on Facebook all the time, I'm back to online coaching again. Why did you leave? Mm-hmm. I mean, you either left all of your clients stranded or they left you for a reason. Why is that? How do you just, imagine Elite FTS. Imagine if you just said, hey guys, we're back after 3 years absence. Why did you close? Mm-hmm. Or, hey, all my clients left, so we had to close the doors, but, we're coming back, we're letting you know, why did everybody leave? I am never at that point with my company. I always have clients that stick with me and stay with me because I offer the best service I possibly can, sometimes at a loss. If I've got a client that needs something, they have to have something, whatever it takes. I don't know how many clients I've bought SS yoke bars for, Texas power bars. I bought at least 7 or 8 SS yoke bars that I've bought and sent to clients here in the States. And it makes coaching them so much easier. If I've got a client with a shoulder issue and it comes down to where I'm looking at, okay, man, this next 12-week cycle, they're either going to pay me or they're going to get smart. And instead of paying me, they're going to buy an SS yoke bar that's probably going to fix their shoulder issues. Why don't I just buy them an SS yoke bar and send it to them? And they're going to have it. Now I can program them with an SS yoke bar in their garage. It makes my job so much easier. And you know what? The next 12 weeks, it runs at a complete loss for me with that client. But they're going to get progress. And if they're getting progress, they're probably going to stick with me. And they're probably going to have good things to say about me. So I've done that with wrist wraps, knee wraps. It's so much easier to invest in your clients and their future and their happiness rather than just to take their money.
Well, what you're doing without even knowing that's what you're doing is you're increasing the lifetime value of each client that you have. So when I speak to the majority of the online coaches that I've spoken to, most of them, their clients are one meet and they're done. And that's, if you're a client, that's really not what you want to do, because all they can do is they can help you peak a little bit, get a little bit stronger, but where the real progress happens is after the meet. So you rest and you start building and fix stuff and build the weak points and all that other kind of stuff. But every time I'm told that they have a turnaround like that, it just reinforces to me they're not that good. Because if they were that good, people would be lining up, to re-sign up, or they're not that good at educating, the client to know that this isn't just a 12-week process. Right. Now I can understand why the client doesn't want to sign up for 3 years or whatever it's going to be, but they have to be educated in the standpoint of, unless you're a freak, you're not going to go to the top of the mountain in a year. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. There's going to be bumps in the road. There may be 6 months. Look back to your own training, years of no progress.
Right.
But then something happens.
Right.
And then you hit giant PRs and for a 3-month period of time. But those giant PRs didn't come from training those 3 months. It was the 2 years before of all the things that you tried to do that didn't work that helped build a base to push that up forward even more so.
Well, I've since age 13, I don't think I've ever not owned a business. Since at age 13, I went to the bank and got a loan from the bank to start up a business. And at no point in my life have I ever not owned a business. My company, we work with children with autism and people with autism, providing seminars, whatever is needed. And with coaching, I think of it as the same way. And I look at, I'm from Kentucky. I love basketball. And, I'm wondering, why does somebody pay a basketball coach so much money? Is it because he has a program? He's got a book of plays. That's one big thing. But the best coach knows what to do when everything goes wrong. That basketball coach that looks out and says, this stack of plays I've got, it's not working. The other team is kicking our butt. What do I do now? And he comes up with the right solution, and he knows how to use it, when to use it. And that's probably why my clients stay with me and stick with me, is because no matter what their problem is, it doesn't matter whether it's in the gym or life or whatever, I find a way to solve it. And if I can't solve it, I will find somebody else who will have the answer. But that good coach gets paid not because of the playbook he has, but because he knows what play to use and when to use it.
Yeah, and that point there kind of falls back on one of the things we were talking about earlier with education. And those that come into the sport, there's the ones that just want to be told what to do, which that's fine. There's people to be able to do that. There's other ones that just want to become the best at what they can actually be, going all in, kind of as what you said. Well, part of going all in is actually learning about training, because you're going to have to be able to have dialogue, with other coaches and other athletes on what's working, what's not working, know what's bullshit, know what's not bullshit. You don't know that unless you've actually educated yourself enough to be able to sit down and have the conversation about training.
Right.
If you're completely ignorant, you're going to fall for everything and go nowhere. And it's all there. So to not read it and to not try to understand different methodologies of training is just ignorance.
I can't imagine knowing that the answers are somewhere, and I won't even look for them.
Yeah, well, you're not if you're not looking to increase your educational base as an athlete, then you're not all in.
Mm-hmm.
You're not,
right?
So that's where I have a strong difference of opinion when I talk to a lot of lifters or people in strength sports. It's like, yeah, this is my life. It's everything that I do, and it's like, okay, what's the last thing that you learned about strength and conditioning, and what can you tell me about block training or conjugate training or linear training? Oh, I don't even bother with any of that shit. I just make sure to bust my ass. So what you're telling me is you're not all in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I'm all in. Oh, you're only all in as long as it's comfortable for you, which means you're not all in, because you're all in when you live in discomfort, not comfort. Because when you're living in comfort, you're going to get kicked. Your ass is going to get kicked.
Well, see, if you and I had that conversation and you were telling me that, the first thing I would think was, there's somebody more crazy than me. I need to be like him. If there's somebody else willing to give more than I am, then that just sets me on fire. Because then I'm just thinking, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
And that's the best way to burn a guy out, though. Like if I was competing against that guy, that would be the mental gymnastics that you, especially now online.
You've done that to me so many times, Dave.
It's the mental gymnastics that you can fuck with them.
You're the master of screwing with it. I was here several years ago, and I was big and strong, and I was going to train with Matt Ledusky, and I was getting ready for a weightlifting competition. And I woke up that morning, I'm going to snatch, I'm going to clean and jerk, and I'm going to squat. I'm going to snatch, clean and jerk twice today. And I'm sitting there, and you just look over at me, and you looked over at me and said, you're going to pull 800 today. And then Matt Ledusky looks at me and says, today's max effort lower. And man, the wheels began turning, and my blood pressure shot up, and I know I was red in the face and pissed off because all I was going to do was some light snatches and clean and jerks, and you had to go twist and turn the knobs, then throw out that 800 deadlift number. And while everybody else is deadlifting, you're not going to deadlift? I could barely walk on the way home. I'd sit in a whole ride car on the way home from this place. I was jacked up because you had to go and throw numbers out there and deadlifts. And
so that's putting your ego in the way. Because did that help you get
is
better?
It really in the way?
If it goes against your program and you can't recover, then you're going the wrong direction.
I have that problem separating. I've mentioned that before, that the athlete and the coach, and I have problems separating those two in my head, and one of them will start yelling louder than the other one, and then next thing you know, I'm throwing stuff in the gym and yelling at people and doing really dumb stuff. But
so you're not all in?
I don't know. I feel like I am. I hate you, Dave.
Well, what questions do we have? Don't go with the ones that I threw in there, because I asked most of those already.
Even the one from Murph?
Oh, you can ask that
anything
one.
from Murph.
This is from Murph. He said, what kind of underpants does Clint Darden prefer? Briefs, G-string, tighty-whitey, boxers, or mesh?
On myself, or
he didn't specify, but that's up to you to determine.
Man, my wife looks hot in anything. Fruit of the Loom bikini briefs, probably blue, especially on training days.
Okay. Dave, did you ask him about the Jim Wendler one? Do you? So Clint, this is to you. Do you believe that Jim Wendler is real now? You mentioned before that you didn't know.
Jim is definitely real. I will say that when I did meet Jim Wendler, Harry Selko left the building. Harry was here. Jim came into the building, and Harry left, and there was no Jason Pegg in the room either. So there's still some sort of conspiracy with those three. I just haven't figured out exactly what it is, because you will never see those. Have you ever seen those three in the same room at the same time in your entire life? I rest my case.
I don't think so.
Well, you got me convinced now.
Jim Wendler, Batman in a squat suit. I'm telling you.
I don't know if you guys covered this, but was training hard doing chemo was training hard while doing chemo a good idea?
I just ran another course. I finished up a couple weeks ago. I went from pulling, I remember pulling somewhere between 8 and 810 as a third rep. So I had something like 700 pounds on the bar, and then I pulled a single, and then added chains, pulled a single, added chains, pulled a single, and the last rep that I pulled was over 800. I remember going from that to 3 weeks later getting a nosebleed pulling 308 pounds as a partial deadlift, and it was everything I had. But man,
So was that a good idea?
yes, absolutely. There's no place else in the world I wanted to be. I remember being sitting in the house, and I told this story once in my entire life in front of a small group of close friends. I remember eating lunch with my family and going. I couldn't finish my food. I went out to get my car, and I couldn't drive to the gym. I was so sick. I was getting car sick driving myself. And I'd taken my gym bag and put it in the trunk of my car, and I came back inside and threw my bag down. And my wife was like, what's wrong? Why aren't you going training? And I said, I can't drive. Physically, I can't get to the gym. And she said, get your bag, put it in my car. So I got my bag, put it in her car, and she drove me from the house to the gym. And it's normally a 15-minute drive, and it took us about a half hour to get there because she had to pull over for me to puke every couple of minutes. And we got to the gym. She dropped me off, and I went inside the gym. And I don't know where she went. I'm sure she probably just parked at the church down the street. But she said, I'll be back in 2 hours. And I went inside, and I was doing weightlifting at the time. I put on my Adidas shoes, got on my fancy tight shorts, my knee sleeves, wrist wraps, and I taped my thumb. And I've got a photo that I took because that's all I could do. But I sat there for 2 hours in the gym, and I just looked. And it's the smells of the gym, the chalk on my hands, the tape on my thumbs, the smell of my neoprene sleeves. And I remember looking over there and thinking, you know what, in a few months when I get healthy, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to squat, and I'm going to snatch, and I'm going to rotate these exercises. And all I did for 2 hours was sit there. My wife came back, and she's 2 hours later, and she sent me a text message, and she said, I'm outside. And I said, I can't change clothes. I'm inside. I've got to have your help. I don't have the energy to change clothes. So she came inside, got me out of my gym clothes, got me into regular clothes, got me back in the car, and took me home. And she did that several times. And it got to the point to where she did that so often that she began going to the gym and training with me. Just because if she was going to have to be there anyway, might as well train. And I think, that brought us, a lot closer together. And we trained for a long time with the exact same bar, with the exact same weights. And we had a lot of training sessions where she would beat me every single day in the gym on snatch, clean and jerk, squat, front squat, deadlifts, for months and months at a time. She would beat me. But if I can get to the gym, I will. I'll do something. I can sit, even if I can't train, I can sit there and make plans. But there are things that you can do and sit here in this gym and just look out at the equipment, and you can make plans. It's stuff that you can't do at home. You can't just sit at home with a notebook, pen, and paper and come up with plans. Not as good as you can if you're here at the gym and you can smell it. And I had AC/DC still cranking on the radio and still making plans. But yeah, I couldn't. I had a ton of injuries. I had 2 bicep tears, 2 hamstring tears, a lat tear, and a tricep tear in a short period of time. I went from a body weight of 292 to somewhere below 220. I quit getting on the scale at that point in about 4 weeks. Last year, I was 287. I was somewhere below 230. And then I was back up in the 270s again. And then even this year, I've been in the 250s, I've been in the 280s, and I've been in the 260s, even so far this year. So what's the other option, though?
I'm not going.
Is that really an option?
I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, I legit had days where the couch was where I wanted to be, where I woke up and said, my goal for today was to get from the bedroom to the couch. And that's all I did that day. That was it. But if I could get to the gym any way possible, that's what I did. Absolutely what I did. For better, for worse, that's where I was. There's no other place I really, really wanted to be. And, you know, you and I had a conversation several years ago, and I have it on audio tape, and I never released it because I wanted your permission. We were sitting at a table just like this at the other place, and you sat down because you wanted to help me get better at business. And I remember having the conversation. I was explaining all this to you about how I had so many clients and I was doing this. It was taking up so much time, and that I had bought an iPhone. I was the first person that I know of in the entire country of Cyprus that had any iPhone. And I had paid a ton of money for a data package. And just as I was explaining to you that I got the data package on my iPhone, I got it so that way when I took my son to the playground, I could answer emails and I could kill two birds with one stone. And you stopped me just before I finished. And I won't use all the language that you said, but your basic point was you pointed at my son and you said, these years only come once. You know, today only comes once with your child. So you've got to put all that down and you've got to devote your time to your child. Either be with your child or don't, one or the other. And I think that eventually I got much better at that. That when I'm with my kids and I'm with my family, I'm with my kids and I'm with my family. And when a client sends me an email and says, I'm sorry, I'm late, but I have to have this right now, I'll reply back and say, I'm sorry, I'm with my family. They're worth more than you are. And most of my clients understand. But if I want to be at the gym, then that's where I want to be. I want to be at the gym. I don't want anything else to stop me. And if I want to be with my family, I'll be with my family. But I'll give 100% when I'm there. Not 75, but 100% when I'm there. So I don't know. I've done some really crazy and probably dumb stuff over the last several years with, you know, all the medications that I've had to take. Competed the last 2 years at Masters World's Strongest Man with an IV in my arm. Ran chemo the week before. Ran it before I got on the airplane. I went blind before I got on the airplane last year on the way home. So it was a nice flight home in a wheelchair, not being able to see anything the entire time home. But I did it.
You did a quick little pivot, like right there. Let's go back.
I'm probably going to shift away from anything I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, let's go back here to the chemo and your family and the conversation that we had. The days that your goal was just to make it to the couch. And I'm going to put this conversation out there because there's a lot of people, actually everybody, who is addicted to training. Let's just say it for what it is going to have an experience like this at some point in their life, unless they die, you know, of a sudden heart attack or sudden death or whatever it is. And during those times, you're gonna wish that you would have died in a car wreck or
Absolutely.
some sudden death. I am sure there were times that you were on the kitchen floor or bedroom floor and just wanted to make it to the couch.
Yeah.
So the reminder there is, who was there to help you get to the couch?
Oh, my wife and my son.
Who was there?
100%. My son's taken out IVs before. He hates the sight of blood. My son's 11 now. He would have been 7 then.
Who
taking
drove
out
you to
daddy's
the gym?
IVs. My wife.
You think when you pass, any client's going to even show up?
No.
Who will?
My wife. She'll be there 100% of the time.
Yeah,
She's always with me. There's nobody, you know, my mother and my wife are very similar in nature, even though they may butt heads every once in a while. But my wife is there for me 100% of the time, no matter what.
And you know that now more
Absolutely.
than way more.
Because I can tell you, I was not a nice person during that time.
No, and you weren't the person that you were at
No.
the height of your competitive career.
No.
Where it's all ego, attitude, and kick ass. Where they're, not.
She fell in love with me just before I turned pro. She was there with me at the contest where I earned my professional status. So, and she's been there with me when I've competed on Eurosport, when I've competed internationally everywhere, when I've won. So she's seen me as this success where everybody likes me and they talk about me. Oh, Clint's a great guy and we love him so much. And then she's seen me when, just everything that comes with chemotherapy, where you're just, you never leave anywhere without extra pairs of underwear. You're going to vomit nonstop. I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure my son's watching this now, how many times I've had to take my son to English class on Mondays or Thursdays, and I've had to keep the car door open the entire drive there because I would just vomit out the door nonstop. Whatever I ate for lunch before we went, it's just, I'm sitting there the whole time, holding it down, open the door, vomit at the stoplight, next stoplight, open the door, vomit. Or, how many times they see me even now, eat lunch, and then I just take off running to the bathroom, and everything that I just ate comes right back up. And then I go back and I'm sitting there with a fan on me, are you okay?
So with all that in mind, how could strongman or training ever come before them?
I'd like to think my family, I would like to think that I balance things out as best I can. I would like to think that I train, and then when Daddy's not.
Did you before the chemo and all the other stuff?
Not as much, no. I think everything was, man, I don't know. I'd have to ask my wife what her thought would be, because I still think about it 24/7, But I do ask her, I do tell her, hey, I really want to go compete this year. Is this something you think we can do? I really want to go train today. Do you think I can go train today? And then add another special needs child to that situation, and that changes everything as well. Because I have to split my time, again. And I know I'm not getting younger, and I know that I'm not producing anywhere near the numbers that I did before chemo. I've never came back, not anywhere near fully, to reaching the same numbers before. And that was a big concern with me before I began. I remember trying to seek validation, and I wanted someone with a soft touch. Bob Youngs was the first person to know I was about to start chemo outside of my wife. Because I met Bob. I knew he was a West Side guy. And to me, it didn't look like he lifted weights. And I wanted Bob to tell me a couple things. One, it's not going to be that bad. And I wanted him to tell me, two, that he left training because he wanted to, not because he had to. And he didn't reply back to me either way that I wanted. He replied back and he told me several things. He told me that life was going to suck for a long time. Coming back is never going to be easy, if possible at all. And then he had to throw a couple of kickers out there because Bob always had to stab you once or twice and kick you a little bit. And he said, "Don't worry, what you're about." He said, I looked it up, and the drug you're about to start taking looks like a piece of cake compared to what I had to take. He had to throw that out there, and I was worried that because I knew I was going to be a shell of myself. I was worried I was going to be kicked off the team at Elite FTS. And if I can still find the email, he said that when he was at his sickest in the hospital, that Dave Tate sat with him in the hospital the whole time, and that you picked him up out of his hospital bed to carry him to the bathroom. And he said he was so embarrassed that you did that that you had to, that he couldn't do it on his own, that you picked him up because he had to go to the bathroom. And he said, you looked at him and said, I am my brother's keeper. And I will never forget reading that email from Bob. And he said that I would never be kicked off of Elite FTS because of anything out of my control. And then he told me I sucked at wrapping my knees.
Yeah, he was good at doing that. The takeaway, I think, is I've had bouts of dealing with medical shit, not to that extreme, but to the extreme that not being able to get out of bed, not knowing if I was actually going to be alive, the next day. But the getting to the gym, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to train, but just to get in the gym and just grab the bar, just feel the knurling of the bar. It's
amazing.
It's, I was once told, here's me doing my own pivot here. I was once told that when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to think about this training bullshit. You're going to think about your family. You're going to think about all this other stuff. And my reply back to that now is, I have been there, and I did fucking think about training, because there's a lot of fucking hours when you're on that bed. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're there for 2 minutes, right, crash, gone. Right. So yes, I did think of my wife. I did think of, my kids, is everything taken care of? They're going to be okay, all this other kind of stuff. And I thought back, to the training sessions, the stupid ones, not the meet. I didn't think back to one fucking meet, just the training sessions and all the other stuff. And then when I was able to be released and kind of go back to work. I mean, you're always working. That's the problem when you're a business owner, is throughout all this shit. And this is another thing. That's a takeaway. You still had to fucking train clients.
Right.
You own your own business. You're still working. So there's no days off. So I was able to continue to do that, but to be able to get into the gym and then, just to grab the bar, it's like, that I had two thoughts that went through my mind is, maybe I'm never going to be able to lift this again, but, this at least, I love the way this feels, and it's a little bit of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, if I can just get back to where I can actually do this for something, instead of just coming out here and helping other people out, then that's purpose beyond, just family and so forth and work and all that. The other thing was, and this was one of my biggest fears, is if I didn't come out for 6 weeks at a stretch, I might not ever fucking come out again. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that I don't know the answer to that, because I won't let that much time go by, because you'll form another life. It's a part of my life. I'm not going to say it's my identity. J.M. Blakely kind of called me out on that one. It's not who I am. It's something I do, which is, something you have to come to terms with, because it's true, and you need to digest that and really think of that, because at some point in time, you're not going to be able to. You're not. You're going to be walking around the gym frustrated, doing basic gymnastics, right, and just training for health, because your back hurts, just moving enough so you don't fucking hurt. But it doesn't mean you can't help other fucking people, because you get those younger people with no aches and pains. It's like, okay, I have all this accumulated, and let's see what we can really do with it with somebody that's fresh. So you're kind of seeing that now, because you're going through that transition where you can take all this that imagine if you could take everything that you know now and put it into a 25-year-old Clint Darden. You know what I'm saying? Right. Oh, fuck. All right. Well, those are the training partners and the clients. Right. You just got to know how to cut the fields and get rid of the weeds, so you have that person that can utilize that and then take it from there. And that's why I think a lot of the strength sports have advanced over the years. They haven't advanced so much because there's more people coming into it. It's advanced because they've been around now for 50, 60 years
Right.
with people sticking around helping other people out.
Right.
Because one common thread you're going to find in most of the best of the best is at some point in time they were working with somebody
Right.
who really knew their shit, and then formed relationships with other people who really knew their shit. And then it just, that's 30 years more shit than
Right.
what we had access to experience, than what we had access to. We had access to the same.
And getting access to it meant you had to get into a car.
Yeah,
Or pick up a telephone.
Yes.
Back before there was
read
area
a book.
calling or.
Yeah, I mean, their information's so
Right.
easy to find. And the text and all the written stuff, that's still all there. And I don't think that it's information overload. I think it's pretty easy to kind of navigate and get through all that kind of stuff. But what's changed is we have people now with 30 years experience sticking around, saying, hey, let's, and helping out and passing on and helping these other guys do that and setting the example for those guys,
Right.
To be able to take care of our kids, if that's something that they desire to do when they get older. So it's just going to continue to keep, things are being done now that we didn't think the body was able to do,
Right.
40 years ago. I mean, forget the gear or raw thing. Jesus, I mean, this is ridiculous. Some of the things that we see being done. But
a lot of the kids are, like you said, they're starting out at a much higher point than we built up to after 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at my training partners. They're coming into my gym with no heat, no air conditioning. I'm borrowing electricity from a neighbor. Every bar in the gym has rust on it. Every plate has rust on it. There's dust and dirt all over the floor. I'll yell and scream and throw stuff, and blood is just blood. But if they go to any other gym in the country, it's a fitness club. They get one guy in there that works hard. Is there a guy in your gym willing to push himself to the edge of death? Does anyone know what a good morning is? Nobody else in the country knows what a good morning is or has an SS yoke bar. So guys come to my gym and they train with me for 6 months if they will, and they learn what, true grit is, what it means to show up when you don't feel good, and I sit there and send photos to everybody at my gym about the food that I'm eating at night just before, I go to bed, and they're like, well, I had 2 meals today and, a couple of hamburger patties. I'm like, well, I've had 3 steaks today and a giant pork chop and force-fed this. And, they may think I'm crazy so they're not making progress anymore. Then all of a sudden they're listening to me. But I had to have those guys. I either had, an older guy that helped me with that, or I had to learn it, through 20 years of success and failure.
No, I know you've had these days, and I'm going to put it out there just as an example. It's going back to chemo and being sick, and even pre-chemo being sick, because you've been dealing with this shit for a while. Which, what is it? Let's throw it out there. What is it that you're dealing with?
I have ulcerative colitis, but it's not just what you normally look at as nonstop diarrhea, or it's ulcers or whatever in your intestines. I went through a period where it began spreading everywhere. Covered my skin, heart, lungs, liver, what else? It began spreading like cancer. So I remember in 3 weeks' time, I did drop from the 280s to the 220s. And it wasn't that I stopped eating. It was just everything was eating me. So at that point, we had to get really, really aggressive with how we were going to stop everything from multiplying. And we talk about chemotherapy. I use a drug called methotrexate. And that's one of those medications where everyone's going to all of a sudden say, oh, I've got an aunt that uses that, or I've used that before. It's very dose dependent, so I'm going to throw the number out there. So if anyone's ever used methotrexate, this will mean a lot to them. Standard dose is somewhere between 12.5 and 25 milligrams per week. I ran 5 grams, 5,000 milligrams per week. So if you have any idea what methotrexate is, your jaw just probably hit the floor. But that's the level of what we had to hit my body with, at least for a while. So that's going to mean nothing to a lot of people, but it's going to mean a lot to the people that know what that drug is and how dose dependent that is.
did you have lifts within these training sessions, on the days that you felt good, that in the back of your mind knew that there's a possibility that straining as hard as it was going to take to do the lift could have made it your last lift?
Probably.
In other words, were you okay going into the gym knowing you may not walk out that day?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I ever had that conscious decision. If I'm being completely honest, a lot of the last several years is a blur, and a lot of it I can't remember. My memory at certain point, I remember waking up and for months and having no idea what the day was. And my wife took a notebook and put it next to me on my bed, and she would write down, today is Tuesday, and then what I had to get done because I would have no idea what day today was. I had a problem talking for a long time, and then when I did talk, this is something that still happens when I have to take the medicine, is that I will stutter nonstop. And I'm generally a pretty good speaker. I can generally talk fairly well. And it's so frustrating to try and say anything, and you can't. I can see it in my mind, but I can't get it to come out. There's a whole new meaning to it. When people say they're exhausted, it's not, man, I'm exhausted. It's literally, this is it. I've got nothing else left to give today. And that was me for a long time, every single day. So if I had something to give, it was in the gym, whatever it was. And I don't think I even minded having to go back down to where I could barely deadlift a plate per side in full gear, a plate per side, because it was hard work, and I love the hard work. And I'll definitely say I'm more of a gym lifter than I am a competitor, because I love gym lifting. I absolutely love it. I love closing the doors. I love turning the music up. I love all the little stupid things that I say to myself in the gym. I love it more than anything else.
You got another question?
Yeah. So we could do like a little rapid fire with some of these other ones.
Yeah.
When doing accessory lifts, how hard do you work and what kind of volume?
That's really vague. I think I've told clients before that you can either push the core lift and then kind of cruise on the accessory. You can either push the core lift and relax. No. You can push either the core lift or the accessory lift. You can push both of them, but for a very short period of time. So, if I have a client that's burned out and needs a deload, I usually give them an option. Core lift, and then one set of walking through every accessory and then leave. Or skip the core lift or just warm up on the core lift and then push the accessories and then leave. Limit as much as you possibly can. But we need to do one of the two. But deciding on how much they should do really depends on the athlete, what kind of shape they're in, where they're at, what hurts. Can they do, 5 sets of 5 different exercises for accessories? Can they handle triceps and lats and back extensions, glute ham raises and reverse hypers after good mornings, after box squats in a session? Maybe at their best they can't handle all that. So it depends on the person. And I hesitate to say anything because a lot of people want to hire me for a month at a time. And I'll just say, no, it's not possible. No one wants to keep me as a coach after month 1, because the first 4 weeks, I'm looking at what they do every single week, trying to assess what their mistakes are, technical flaws, how much they can handle, how little they can handle, and they often go back. And it's not till that 10 to 12 week mark where everything starts really skyrocketing forward. But they're most often out of shape to train. They don't know how to do the lifts, the exercises, and that takes time to figure out, especially with that distance. So if I can get an athlete to a gym that I know, where there are guys that know how to do a good morning, they know how to do a box squat, they know how to bench press in a shirt, just go there. I'll coach you. Go there, do whatever everybody else is doing when you get to that gym. I'll fix it next week.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You may have already touched upon this. I apologize if so, but What is more important in strongman, static or dynamic strength, or are they equal?
Every contest is going to be different. When I was younger, I wasn't that statically strong at all, but I was extremely athletic, and I could run, jump, flip, and that took me really, really far for a long time. As I've gotten older, the static strength became more and more important, and now as I'm in my 40s, probably the bodybuilding type stuff and agility is more important than the static strength. I need the extra muscle to carry me through the events, and I need to be able to move and be athletic. And it depends. If you're not strong enough to move the weight for a single, then you better be working on getting statically strong. And if you're old and slow, you better be working on your dynamic strength, the ability to move, how agile you are. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but every contest is going to be different. Like we discussed earlier, how the sport has evolved. A lot of contests in Europe are just friendly shows. You show up and compete, and the whole idea is that we're going to do a show every single weekend throughout the entire year. And so they don't want you to get beat up. They don't want you to get hurt. So we're going to have reasonable weights on reasonable events, and we want you to put on a good show for the crowd. And that's the goal. Nobody get hurt. Great show for the crowd. See you again next weekend. I think that's missing in the States. I think someone needs to put on, a contest, pick 10 guys, and travel the country and put on good shows. Pick events that nobody gets hurt. Put on good shows. Let the crowd have a great time. Sign autographs. There's so much opportunity with that. I think that's completely untapped.
Mm-hmm. Bring more lifters or more people into the sport.
I think so. I've always thought that if you look at strongman, even if you divide the country into 4 squares, and you have a region 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you pick up, 6 or 7 athletes from each one of the regions, and you say, okay, we're going to have a contest. We have 7 athletes. Your job as one of our athletes is to promote one show and find sponsors for every athlete that's going to come to your show. You're going to pay for everything. You're going to pay for you're not paying airplane tickets. We expect everyone to drive and carpool when they can. We're going to get hotel. You're going to get 3 meals, and we're going to give you a $100 bill for competing. First place makes the same as last place. But every athlete's their job is to have to put together one contest, and you invite all of the people in your region or whatever, and you just put on a show. You have a good show. You give you and all of your friends have a place to go and compete, have fun. You don't get hurt. And at the end of the year, if you want to have a nationals, you can have one serious contest and have everybody there. But if you want to promote the sport, you've got to have contests where people don't get hurt. You can have these contests in a bar. You want to have a static contest, max log, partial deadlift, Atlas stone over a bar, pick 4 or 5 events, have it inside of a bar somewhere where everybody's slammed in, and the lights and lasers and fog, the athlete, digging into the nose torque where, you're in the audience and you can smell the torque. You're getting covered with chalk and you feel like you're part of the show. I think that absolutely sells, and it's fun as an athlete to do shows like that, where you feel that, the crowd is right there with you. And the events, you're not worried about getting totally destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Nobody's done it yet, so maybe there's not a call for it yet. But I think that's going to be a future for somebody in the future.
Okay, this one could be answered with a simple Google search, but somebody actually asked where Cyprus is.
It always sounds bad whenever I mention. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be looking here, but
just pretend Dave's sitting over there.
Cyprus on the map. It's in the East Mediterranean Sea. Our nearest neighbors would be Greece, Turkey, Egypt, Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria. A lot of countries that sound dangerous the more that you say it, but it's a really, really tiny island. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to go from one side to the next. And I think we are still the only country still divided by a wall. we do have a wall down the middle of the island separating the country.
Okay, this one just came in through the live chat. Said, what are the chances of you re-uploading your max deadlift video you did on your old channel? They said it was one of the best deadlift videos they've ever seen. Explain what that is, too, because I'm not sure what they're talking about.
I've got a couple of old videos. I've deadlifted 800, 801, 804, 805, 806, 809, 811, 14, 15, 16, and 21 over my lifetime in straight weight, all in my gym. I'm a gym lifter. I'm not a competitive power lifter. So I've got videos of all of those, but probably the 821 would be one of my best videos. Give me a week. I may have to wait till I get back home. I may not have that exact video with me on a hard drive, but I will get that one uploaded as soon as possible.
Okay. You got any stories about missing big weights when training solo, and how did you not die?
Let me see. Missing big weights while training solo. I mean, I've missed a lot of benches before, and then I'm always glad I have the safety pins set up just at my throat, which is real interesting when benching in a shirt, because I've missed some in a shirt before, and you almost do a really dynamic effort, negative JM press down to your throat to let the rack catch it. Missing big squats. I missed an 800 or an 880 squat, and I came up and the bar shifted and I dumped it off my back, landed on my rack, and it destroyed my bar. And then I got a Texas squat bar. So I've had no issue. I've dumped 774 with my Texas squat bar, and it lived to see another day. I don't think I've had anything absolutely insane happen training alone.
Dave's probably never trained alone, I would assume.
No, I have.
Did you ever have any? The question was, did you ever have any miss any big weights while training solo? And was it dangerous, or what happened?
No, but I don't know if I told this story before, but I almost died once.
Let's hear it.
Doing a challenge set. It was when I was training with Meadows. And
the S4?
Yes. And it was a leg day. And for some reason, whenever I train legs by myself, it's not a good idea. It's never a good idea, because I won't squat, because I'm not that fucking stupid from that standpoint. And I got to use a yoke bar, so there's that as well. So it was a leg press.
You cannot dump a yoke bar. At least I can't.
No, I'm not going to put myself in a position.
I have gotten stuck with 700 on the yoke bar, and I had to yell outside for people to come inside and help me.
And I won't walk anything out because of several reasons, but the biggest one is the prosthetic. It's wear and tear and stepping, walking and so forth. It's easier, because the only reason there's lots of reasons why I'm squatting, but one of the reasons is to maintain bone density and to keep the joint stable. So the heavier the weight at the top, the better, because I have to support and stable it. But I also want to minimize the weight as much as I can at the bottom. Hopefully, I try to get about 30% off at the bottom by using reverse bands or chains or something like that. But I can't do that by myself, because somebody's got to run the lift. Somebody's got to make sure I get back into the rack and stuff like that. But John used to do these things called upsets on the leg press, where you'd start with, say 2 plates per side, and you do 5 reps, and you throw a plate on and do 5 more reps, throw a plate on, do 5 more reps, and you just keep going until you can't do 5 reps. So I had this great idea that I wanted to do that, but I was going to do it for 10 reps, and I was going to go up and back down. All right. So I forced myself to get to the same weight all the way up and all the way back down. So it was actually, I think, the same day that I made the Void video, where I was like almost dying, leaning on the reverse hyper with the Bowling Green hat. As soon as after I left because I did that, I can't even tell you how many reps it was. I mean, it was like 14 plates per side, going up, going down. So 280, I mean, it's a fuck ton of reps. And so I'm leaning against, this is where I made my mistake, is I got off, and instead of walking around, I just leaned against the reverse hyper, and I filmed it, and I'm still breathing like a fucking freight train, just kind of in that zone. Like, you fuckers, you don't know what it's like to train fucking hard, you know, because this was fucking hard. Probably one of the hardest things that I did. So I'm like, I'm gonna tell the fucking world that you guys don't train hard. You're a bunch of fucking wimps. This is what fucking training hard is. And so as soon as I did that, you know, I hit the floor. I didn't drop, but I went down on the floor just to fucking lay down, you know, because I couldn't breathe, and woke up 20 minutes later, and I pissed myself, shit myself, basically just like, what the fuck just happened? And you know, so it's like, oh fuck, I still gotta finish my workout, and I got shit in my pants, and you know, so it's getting, you know, changing the clothes and all this other kind of shit. And you know, at the time, you know, I thought, man, this is fucking awesome, you know, and I just drink more water and hobble over to the leg extension and all this other kind of stuff. And looking back now, I actually think I had a mini stroke because through a CT, I don't want to get into that, but through a CT scan, they found something years later, you know, that I think something happened during that time, because I'm lucky I didn't die, because I was out for 20 minutes. So why that happened, I don't know, but that was probably the scariest thing that I ever did, but I didn't know it until looking back on it. And then looking back on it, it's like, man, that was really fucking stupid. Now, I purposely try to do things in the gym, even today, but not on a regular basis, maybe once or twice a month, that I'm scared to do. Something that's just a little bit like,
Or at least your doctor's scared you're doing.
well, they're not happy with anything that I do. But you kind of look at it like, man, I don't know. If I'm going to make this one, it's going to take a little bit more. I need to pull Zippy out for this one. You know, I only got so many Zippy cards, you know, where I could use 3 a day when I was younger. I can use like 3 every 2 months now. And but I like that feeling, because it's, you know, you put the weight on and say it's, you know, for me, it's a spider bar. Say it's 7 plates per side, and you're okay with it. It's like, I know, 6 plates wasn't too bad. You know, 7 plates, I should be able to get that. I'm like, ain't good enough. Fucking put a quarter on there. And then I'm like, okay, I need to get my fucking shit right. I need to make sure everything's fucking right. So I fucked this up, it ain't gonna come up. So that, I like those sets where it's like, okay, this is just a little bit over my threshold right now. I'm gonna have to hit the ammonia caps, which I don't do very much. I'm gonna have to hit the ammonia caps, and I'm gonna have to go to that place,
Or bring the flashlight out or whatever.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go to that fucking place that I love. You know, I love going to that place, but it always ends up in vomit every single time. And they know now, the people that I train with, to not let me stop. Like, as soon as I have to be moving. Mm-hmm. So as soon as the set's over, I gotta walk. Maybe I start puking. They know, and somebody's watching me. It's Ted or Lily or somebody's watching me to make sure that I'm walking around until my heart rate comes back to normal, because we both have known many people, not many, but more than a handful of people that have died, you know, from high rep squats because they rack the bar and then, you know, done from there.
Yeah. So we got one more to end on here. We'll have you both answer, so you go first, Dave. It was, what are the 2 most important or interesting things you have both learned in the last year?
2.
I mean, you can pick one if you want. Just pick one.
Most interesting thing.
Interesting or important.
I'm going to keep it training related, because it's, you know, I read every day. You know, I don't know, you know, if people follow me on Instagram, sometimes I'll mention stuff like that in my AMAs, but I'm reading for an hour about business, and I still read about training textbooks, you know, all the time. So I'm trying to figure out ways to implement training so I can still strain and do the heavy things that I like to do, but not have to do the things that I don't want to do that I know I have to do, I guess, is the way that I'm trying to figure that out. The what I learned in the past year is here's two things that I can say that I learned. One for myself is with the max effort lower body stuff, which is where I test myself a lot. I actually train to be able to peak on certain max effort lifts because I can't do the barbell squat. So it's usually a spider bar squat, reverse banded, or yoke bar with chain. So I'll pick out whichever one that's going to be and then figure out how I want to train for it for 8 weeks or so. What I've found was I can't do max effort work more than twice a month. So it can either be every other week I can do it, which worked well. But what I'm finding now over the past 6 months is it works better for me to actually do the same exercise, which is completely against everything that I believe in, 2 weeks in a row, and not do, and then still only do twice a month. So week 1, no max effort work, just some kind of dynamic repetition thing. Week 2, max effort work with the spider bar. Week 3, max effort work with the spider bar, just more weight. Week 4, nothing. And then going back in the next week, off again. So there's 2 weeks there. And then, so there's 2 weeks. So it's like 1 week on, 2 weeks, or 1 week off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, and so on. And that's how I kind of lay out the max effort work for me to be able to build the strength in the main lift that I'm doing. Now, that main lift, based upon how it goes, is how I base the accessories and how I base everything that I train during the other days. The second part was we train Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. If Saturday and Sunday go well, I won't train Tuesday and Thursday. So, and I get better by doing it that way. If things are not going well on Saturday and Sunday, then I put in what I need to put in on Tuesday and Thursday to make those things go well on Saturday and Sunday. So my training economy is very, very low, but the effort or intensity, it's effort as in the stuff that I would do as accessories, is how hard I work on those, is pretty high, but it may only be 1 or 2 movements. The intensity of the lifts that I'm doing with the max effort stuff is maximally high. With the people that I work with, I've rediscovered, even more than I thought before, nonverbal communication is more important than the training program and more important than the verbal communication. If I didn't use the conjugate method and just had a squat day for them on Saturday and a bench day on a different day and a deadlift day on a different day, and had no program at all, and just based everything that they did on that day on how they looked walking through the door, how they interacted with each other, and how they, moved the weight and all the nonverbal cues that I see, they would make the same gains, maybe even better than what I have them currently doing now. But I would have to be able to always be there every single time to make every single, audible decision on every single set, which is very, very hard to do. But it's easy to do when you have some type of training template designed, and then it's being manipulated based upon what you see. And so now what I'm trying to do is to take the ones that have been here for a long period of time and start teaching them how to see what I see, so then they can start correcting it, and the people that they're training with Because from that standpoint, it's like Sullivan doesn't do conjugate stuff. I got people out here doing conjugate stuff. That doesn't mean I can't help him. I can help him very easily by watching. I know his regular technique. I know when it's off. I know what his bar speed typically looks like. I know what his demeanor looks like. I know when he shifts his demeanor. I know when he shifts it too late. I know when he shifts it too soon. I know when he's too talkative. I know when he's too focused. And it's, now it's before meet, so it's more pulling back. Than it is. I've never had to push Joe forward anyway whatsoever. It's mostly pulling back. But when he's outside of the meet range, then I really don't even have to watch anything that he does, except this time, after the meet, I'm going to watch what he does really close, because he's got a tendency to get injured after the meet because he doesn't pull back far enough. So if he's listening to this, he'll kind of know I'm going to be on his shit. And it doesn't mean that he's going to do it. And I'm completely okay with that, because I was that, so as I think sometimes when we're older lifters trying to help the younger lifters, we need to step back and remember how we were. We were just as bad. Actually, we were probably worse than what they are when it comes to fighting and instructions and, this is bullshit, and thinking that everything and all the other kind of stuff.
I had a 19-year-old kid at the gym the other day asking me some questions, and then I shook his hand to say goodbye and asked him what his name was, and then he told me his name, and I realized I went to preschool with his dad, and that was a reality check. But I was really amazed. I remember being that age, and then guys that were in their 40s were giving me advice, and I would like to think that I actually took their advice, and maybe that's what separated me from all the other 19-year-olds at that time.
For the most part, I did, but the things that I should have took their advice on.
Absolutely, yeah. Resting, recovering, take care of yourself. None whatsoever.
And what you find is now you're on the other side of the table. Yep. And I know people that have bitched and complained, that they don't listen, and they don't take the personal responsibility of maybe your message is wrong. Maybe you need to change your message. Mm-hmm. Maybe the way that you're telling them isn't right. Maybe you need to tell somebody else that's going to tell them. I'm so tired of hearing about the entitlement, the younger people, when I'm seeing it so much more in people my own age.
Right.
It's like, shut the fuck up and take your own personal responsibility and take accountability, and stop bitching about the younger people that aren't doing so.
Right.
Because you're fucking worse.
Right.
A, by the way, you're setting the example right now. B, and they're probably your fucking kids. C, so then there's a reality check, and it's about the message. The question was, what are two things?
What are the two most important or interesting things you have both learned in the last year? And we just stuck with one. So, Clint, whatever the most important or interesting thing in the last year.
Oh, man, the last year. Probably the biggest thing that's changed in my life was the last year. My youngest son is autistic. He's 3. And we knew he was autistic before he was 1. My wife picked it up way before I did. But as he's gotten older, and he is active, because it's...
How did she pick it up at such a young age?
We took him to the beach. Well, we could pick up small things, flapping his hands. That was a big thing. We took him to the beach, and he could not stand to walk on the sand. It was our biggest fear was, how do we take a 1-year-old to the beach, to this big wide open beach, because he's just going to run everywhere. And what am I? I'm like, I've got a 10-year-old I've got to play with out in the water, like a 10-year-old wants to be played with, and I'm beat up anyway. So who is going to watch this 1-year-old running up and down the beach? And then we took him there, and he took one step off into the sand. No, he got back up in a chair and sat there for 4 or 5 hours, never moved. And as things continue to develop, more and more signs pointed that direction. And then we were both like, yeah, that's my wife more so than me. She was like, he's autistic. But we need to take him to somebody else that we are not associated with any way, that we've never met before, and make sure it's not just us, because that's the business we're in, to make sure it's not just us seeing something in our own child. So we took him completely blind to another psychiatrist and just said, what do you see? And she sat down and she said, he's autistic. And we're like, then we move forward from here. But over the last year, at 3 o'clock this morning, he was still in bed, jumping up and down like a wild monkey. And then I was awake at 7:45, which is pretty much been my life for the last year. I can't really remember getting more than 6 hours of sleep in a while, because I put him to bed, and whenever he wakes up is when I wake up. And he stopped taking naps in the middle of the day. I got really good for a while, that whenever he looked like he was about to take a nap, I went to the couch. So when he was asleep, I was asleep. I think, man, there's a whole lot of patience. I've learned that I'm really close to using bad language again, and I can't remember the last time I said a bad word. But he's pushed me to the ledge a time or two, and he's about as frustrating as it gets. But he's also the sweetest kid you can imagine. He's absolutely adorable. I was laughing. We were packing our suitcases to get on the airplane to come here, and we're in the living room floor, and it's just, I hate packing anyway, and I stress about it. And my 11-year-old is running around like a monkey in the house, like 11-year-olds do. And my 3-year-old finds a brand new box of cereal, and goes over in the living room floor and dumps the whole box in the middle of the living room floor. And I'm trying to pack suitcases and shower, and it's after midnight because our flight's like at 5 in the morning. It's an hour drive to the airport. You got to be there 2 hours early. And I hear the box of cereal just hit the concrete floor. And I turn around, and I'm just about to be livid, upset. And I look at him, and as soon as I look at him, he looks down. And this is a kid who he can repeat words, but he doesn't talk. He looks out the floor and he says, "What is this?" And I never even had a chance to get upset, because one, I was happy he said something. And two, I'm like, he got that from me. That is exactly me in my accent yelling, "What is this?" He had poured the whole box of cereal out and just looked down and said, "What is this?" Like he can't believe somebody else did it. There's a whole load of patience. And the flight here, we had a 5-hour flight. I mean, we had a 1-hour drive to the airport. We were at the airport for 2 hours. We had a 5-hour flight. Then we were at London Heathrow for 6 hours on a layover. And then we had a 10-hour flight from there to Nashville, and then a 2-hour drive from Nashville to Murray, Kentucky. And the first flight, there was about total combined about 15 minutes when he wasn't yelling out of 5 hours. And that's real interesting. It's a real interesting time. And we were lucky at London Heathrow. They had a indoor playground. So we took him there, and I was dead to the world. My wife took him in and let him play with the playground, and I fell asleep at the playground right there on the bench. I don't know how long. It might have been 5 minutes. It might have been an hour. I have no idea. And then the next flight, my wife was dead. So the 10-hour flight, 3 seats, me in the middle, my 11-year-old on my left, my 3-year-old on the right, and it was 10 hours on the plane, and he was an angel. He may have screamed a couple times, but I mean, that's just him. He screams. He's not being rude by it. That's just him talking loudly. So I'm not for sure what I really learned from him. Probably that I just don't care what other people think. I really don't care. There's a lady in my hometown, and she is super nice. Opened up her gym for me and my wife to come in and train. Gave us a key, 24-hour gym. And she was explaining to me, if you want to bring your son, bring him up here, let him run, let him play, he'll be fine. And I just had to explain to her, I said, I'm not really concerned about the other members of the gym. I really don't care. My only concern is him. That's it. And I've told this story a few times, but before we came here, we went to the DMV in Cyprus. So it's not called the DMV, but it is the Department of Motor Vehicles. And we had to go because I had to reapply for a medical card. And both my sons needed IDs made for traveling. So we get there. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Zootopia, but I've seen every cartoon that you can possibly see with my son. And there's a part in Zootopia where they walk into the DMV. And the entire DMV is run by sloths, which is just hilarious in itself. And I'm there with my son. He's got his iPad. He's got his Bluetooth headphones on, which help a ton. I can soothe him and he can put the headphones on. He doesn't hear as much. It's not as chaotic. And we were in there, and after we'd been in there for about 45 minutes, they decided they want to try to take his photo. So I'm going to take a 3-year-old, which is just a 3-year-old in itself, who's autistic, and I'm going to make him sit in a chair and be still long enough to take a photo. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And the one split second that we got him to sit still, the woman screwed up the camera and the photo turned out bad. So after he was just screaming and screaming and screaming in tears, I just said, it didn't worth it. I don't care. I don't need a photo. He doesn't need a photo. He's got his American passport. Fine. We're done at this section of the DMV. And he goes over and grabs his iPad. And out of the 10 movies that we have on the iPad, this is a child that can't talk. Out of the 10 movies, he opens up Zootopia and he fast forward to the part where they walk into the DMV that's run by sloths. He hits pause and he turns over and looks at me. And I stopped. I took a photo of him with holding the iPad at that point right there. I'm like, I know, dude. I know. We can't help it. Just a little bit longer. We'll be okay. At the 90-minute mark, he takes off running through the DMV, through all the tables. And I'm trying to catch him, and people are trying to yell, and they're trying to grab him, and they're trying to get in his face and do these little dances you do with normal kids and make them, and that just makes everything worse. And they're like, set him over here on my desk. It'll be fine. I'm like, no, we're going to go sit in the corner. We're going to face a wall. So we're over there facing the wall. And he's got his iPad. It's got giant green cover on it. And he's looking at it and he's smiling, he's laughing, and it's strange smiling and laughing. And finally he puts the iPad down and he puts his hands over his ears. And then he took his hands over, put them over his eyes. And he took his hands down and tears were coming down his face. And he leans over to me and he puts his head in my chest. And I put my hand over his ears. I said, that's it, buddy. You've done great. We're out of here. We're getting out of here. I think I was thinking about this the other day, this whole thing about everybody gets a trophy and, win or lose, every child's a winner. My child may never win at anything, but I think he should be recognized for his effort because I don't think there's any other kid that works as hard as mine. Because that 3-year-old works his butt off every single day. And when he yells and screams, and as strange as everybody else may think he is, when every restaurant I've been to since I've been here, he's yelled and he screamed at every restaurant, every airport, every gym, every place we've been. He's yelled and he screamed. And everybody stops and stares and they look. And they don't realize that he may be strange to them, but they don't realize what's going on in his head. Because however hard it is for everybody else in the room to listen to a screaming 3-year-old, it's twice as hard for him just to be there. So while everyone's wondering what's wrong with him, he's wondering what's wrong with me or what's wrong with everybody else. He's wondering why he doesn't fit in. He's trying to figure out what is wrong. So that kid is a winner, and that kid deserves to know that he's a winner every single day, as long as he's willing to work.
I think your message on the takeaway of really not caring what other people think is something that took me a long time with Blaine and Blaine's autistic to get that. And I wrote about it a few years ago. We were on vacation in the pool, and we play this monster in the corner game where whoever's in the corner, is the winner. So you try to get the other guy out, so you pull on him, you push him, and it's a lot of pushing, and he's high functioning, but he still is loud, and he can still have meltdowns. It's getting better as he's getting older. And a few years ago, he just freaking out, yelling. And all I remember is some dude in the pool, looked over at me, and the guy was, drinking, being an asshole to begin with. So it wasn't like the guy was being courteous. He was being like 99% of all the people that are going to say something to you or me.
Right.
Can you settle your kid down? And I remember looking at him and saying just simply no. And then the dude looked at me like, what the fuck? And then just turned away and walked away. Then I went about just playing the same way.
It's still the truth.
Yeah, I didn't change anything. We just kept playing the same way. Purposely made sure that dude left before we did. Then I pulled my son aside and said, hey, look, we probably want to keep it down a little bit more if there's other people around. So I addressed the situation, as I should, away from somebody else. But I will not ever, even if it's in an elevator and they press every button, I will not ever look to another adult and say, I'm sorry, my son is autistic. I will never do that in front of him, because all I'm doing then is reinforcing that he can use that excuse whenever he wants if he does something that's inappropriate for society. And I will not do that. Nobody, no stranger, nobody is fucking worth that. A friend, somebody who I know, yes, I will say, hey, look, he's going to be loud. He's going to do this. I will do that.
Oh, I generally warn people before they come over.
Yeah, but if it's somebody that's just out in public and that's their fucking problem. And I've had people call me out and say, well, that's bullshit because, how do they know that he's any different than any other kid? I'm like, well, they should actually treat all kids the fucking same. Kids are kids. How do I know that your comment is different than somebody who's a complete total asshole? Because your tone of voice was complete total asshole the same way somebody else's was. I'm more worried about what am I reinforcing in my son for him as he gets older to be able to have the best life that he can possibly have. And that life being the best life he can possibly have, I don't want to start with, hi, my name is Blaine Tate and I am, autistic. It's not going to be that. It's going to be, hello, this is my name, and this is who I am, and that's going to be what it's going to be. And I just will not do that. I will not take his ability, because I refuse to call it a disability. I will not take his ability and flip it and make it a disability, because there's some things the same as your kid. There's some things that they're incredible at. They just haven't figured out how to use that gift that they have yet. They will. It may take time. They may be 17, 20, whatever it is. But at some point in time, they're going to figure out how to use that. And we can see it today in adults that have Asperger's or adults that have, autism. And I'm not talking about the people that play fucking Mozart on the piano and, everybody that's sensationalized. I'm talking about, kids that may be amazing fucking bricklayers, and, they're going to find their thing.
Oh, I just want my kid. I don't have any of the answers. I just want my kid to be normal, normal. I want him to be picked on. I want him to be made fun of, just like I was. I want him to have to clean the house. I want him to get in trouble when he doesn't clean his room. I want him to have everything that I had, including getting, screwed with by all of his friends, messed with by his big brother. I don't mind making autistic jokes at all. I don't mind. I'll make every single one. I don't care. I think it's funny. I've had no problem here. People look at my son. I'm like, he's autistic. I don't care. The thing is here in the States, the difference between the United States and where I am in Cyprus, is I will say my child has autism. And people at least have some kind of idea of what that is and what to expect. They have some kind of idea that my son cannot control this, that they should at least think for a second before judging. In Cyprus, I can say that my child is autistic, and they have no idea what that is. not a clue. I'll say it in Greek, I'll say it in English. They have not a clue what that is. What is that? You can fix that, right? I mean, he'll grow out of that, right? No, he's not. This is him. This is the way he's going to be. So I've had no issues whatsoever being here in the States the last couple of weeks. You know, if he's out of control, if somebody will ask something, you know, I have no problem saying he's autistic. That's what he is, you know. If they want to ask when my other wife and son are speaking to each other in a foreign language, they're Greek. They speak Greek. That's what they are. You know, my other son's autistic, so if he's yelling and screaming, everyone's like, okay, that's fine. I went to the hotel pool last night. My son rode all the way here. It took us 9 hours to get here in a car. And we did stop at the truck stop halfway between where I live and Louisville, just before E-Town. We went in the truck stop, and our goal was to go and get something to drink, something to eat, use the bathroom. We did none of those. That's how good our little trip inside went with him before we were carrying him back out to the car, yelling, kicking, and screaming. But other than that, the rest of the trip here, he was amazing. So I got to the hotel last night at 9:30, and I went inside, and I said, man, what time does your pool close? And she said, well, it closes at 10. I said, well, my son is autistic. He's in the car. He just finished a 9-hour ride in the car, and he was amazing. Can I run and just get him in the pool just for a couple of seconds? Because I owe this to, he was really good. She said, I'll tell you what, I'll stay open to 10:30 for you. And she stayed open to like 10:45. I mean, even extra. But I have no problem saying that my child is autistic whatsoever. This is Luke. He's autistic. Super cool kid, really smart, really funny. But, you know, a child using that and saying this is my excuse is totally different than I think the rest of the world having an understanding, you know.
Yes.
Because, you know, I go to the toilet 6-8 times a day. So most people think I'm rude if I just get up and take off and go to the bathroom, you know. But if someone understands, look, you can't help this. This is just the way he is. Then I think if you have half a heart, you can have some kind of understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think we've been really blessed here in the States to be able to say, look, he's autistic. This is just the way he is. He's not going to stop screaming.
Yeah.
You know, and people here at least have some kind of idea. All the awareness stuff that's gone on here, people here at least have some kind of idea of what that means.
Well, that's cool to know that it's working. So we'll end on that note. So I want to thank Clint, thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.